Place though on Tuesday nights and certainly through Wednesday morning with some clear spells, and where we've got some shelter from the wind, there'll be a patchy frost to wake up to across central and eastern parts of the UK. A bright start though for many. However, the southwest, South Wales, parts of Northern Ireland we'll see a milder start to the day. Certainly for Cornwall it's very mild to begin things, but it's also wet as a band of heavy rain moves through. That's pushing into Devon, Somerset, Dorset by 7 a.m, into Wales at this stage as well as Northern Ireland. It's accompanied by a strengthening wind, and that wind will affect much of the UK. It will also tend to thicken up the cloud through Scotland with a few spots of light rain around first thing Wednesday. But the brightest skies will be through the Midlands, the east and southeast of England, where there will be some glimmers of sunlight through the morning and early afternoon before this system moves eastwards. That's going to bring thicker cloud and some light rain and drizzle, but it tends to peter out by the afternoon. Brighter skies for a time towards the southwest, and it's in the southwest where we're going to see that mild air make inroads. 13 Celsius, for example, in Exeter, whilst it stays just 5 or 6 across eastern parts of the country. But by Thursday, we're all in the mild air, and that means a frost-free start to the day, but it's also going to be a very lively start with strong winds and heavy rain, even some thunderstorms around. The wettest weather first thing in the north and west, that clears east. Some brighter skies follow, but the weather's going to be very unsettled, very changeable through Friday and the weekend. Further rain and strong winds at times, but mild with it as well.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. British Typhoon fighter jets could be used to police the skies over Ukraine.
Well, it comes as President Trump blames Ukraine for Russia's invasion and demands they hold elections and look to end the war.
It could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this
bit more
years ago.
Knife crime crackdown, the Home Office to introduce stricter rules for buying blades online.
That's why this is a major crackdown on online knife sales in order to take lethal weapons out of the hands of children.
Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is the latest cabinet member to be accused of fabricating his CV, claiming he's a solicitor, despite the fact he never qualified.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day for what is now my constituency.
2 weeks, my show is coming out, which I'm so excited for, and also my business.
Another Markle makeover. The Duchess of Sussex takes to social media, revealing the plans for another new brand.
And an inspiring story for you this morning. Army veteran Craig Woods is hoping to be the first triple amputee to sail the Pacific.
Disney have toned down the content guidance following Donald Trump's anti-distance. We are asking, is it time to ditch trigger warnings?
Ladies and gentlemen,
what is
you
that
are
word?
very welcome always to our fashion shows.
And we'll be hearing about the 90-year-old care home residents who are redefining London Fashion Week.
And in the sports, Celtic led Bayern Munich with just 40 seconds left on the clock until, well, you can guess what happened. They conceded and then went out of the Champions League. 75th season of F1 was launched in London last night with a very glitzy event at the O2, and every team unveiling their new cars. And Pep Guardiola says he lied when he gave Man City a 1% chance of beating Real Madrid tonight. They got at least 5%.
It's turning much, much milder over the next few days, but also much wetter and windier for all of us. Find out more in the full forecast coming up.
Hello there, halfway through the week. You're watching GB News Breakfast. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello.
"75 years of Formula One," and there are those people who use the roads, ordinary people who believe they're on a Formula One track, Ellie. That's what they do. And do you know what happens? The police get them, catch them, and they have to attend speed courses.
They do. Speed awareness course. How was it, Coity?
It was 3 hours. It was 3 hours of sitting on Zoom. But the thing is, though, I did something that the instructor said they've never seen before on a speed awareness course.
What did you do?
So they have like a round where you see a little video and you're supposed to have a little look and go, right, where's all the dangers? Can you see the dangers?
Like a hazard perception test.
Exactly, and I'm looking, I'm thinking there's a kid there, okay, there's a dog there. So then it ends and it says, what happened next? And I'm like, I have no idea. So they had A, B, C, or D. So, and it's like, well, what do you think happens next? Do you see someone coming in the other direction? I'm thinking, I don't know. Yeah. So I said, I think the answer is A, that, and that was one of the multiple choice, that the car in front reverses back in front of you. And they said, right, OK, everybody hold up your pads. And everybody had C, apart from me that had A. And the woman says to me, I've got to say, Paul, that's the first time anybody has ever said A. And I said, oh, thanks very much. And she went, no, that's wrong. And I said, well, how many people have done the course? She said, thousands, and nobody has ever said that before.
So really, she was saying how stupid you were.
Exactly what she was saying.
That's so unique.
That was exactly, well, this is what I said. I said, well, you know, that's something. And then she went,
I think that makes you stand out.
Well, thank you very much.
That makes them say he's not taking this course seriously.
I was.
Yes, I know you were, my friend, but the thing is, they're looking and they're thinking, nobody could possibly be deliberately as stupid as that. So therefore he's...
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Messing around.
Well, yeah. So, no, I think she just thought, really? Are you serious? So that was it.
So you've done a speed awareness course. You've done a speed awareness course.
Oh, I had a lovely time at mine.
Did you?
Yeah. It was pre-COVID. No, I did have a lovely time. It was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And yes, I'd been going slightly over the speed limit. And it was in a hotel in Essex, and there were lots of biscuits and tea and coffee was free-flowing. And then because it was in Essex, everyone was a great character. So
oh, nice.
Great day out. But you've never been a great driver.
Was he a great driver?
I've never had the experience of doing anything bad like that. I've never had a speeding ticket in my life. Never had a parking ticket.
So when you drive, are you like this?
No, I'm not. I'm just very good.
Just very good driver.
I love gripping a wheel. I love being behind a wheel. I love driving. I just do it
very slowly.
Correctly.
Correctly. Yeah, correctly, the correct way.
What speed were you doing?
I was doing, I think it was about 70 in a 20 mile an hour. No. Just a couple of miles over. She said, you've got to be, because it's all about emotions. She says, you've got to be cool. She said, what's the name of that tennis player? And I'm thinking, well, I should know this. And she goes, she's going, no, who's the really cool? And she was going, oh, and they went, oh, Bjorn Borg. She said, yeah, Bjorn Borg, very cool. I said, yeah, but he was a terrible driver. And then that didn't go down too well either, so.
Very good. Anyway, any stories about your speed awareness calls, please do get in touch with them this morning, gbnews.com/yoursay.
To the news, British troops could be used to keep the peace in Ukraine as the government explores options to provide troops or Typhoon jets to help.
Well, it comes as President Trump is demanding that the Ukrainian President, Zelensky, holds an election that could oust the leader from office following talks between the US and Russia.
Wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election? That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. You know, Ukraine is being just wiped out.
President Trump also supported Keir Starmer's call for British peacekeeping troops to be sent to Ukraine.
To do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine. I mean, I know France has mentioned it, others have mentioned it, UK has mentioned it, but yeah, if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, you know, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both.
Well, we're joined now by former political advisor James Price. Good to see you this morning, James. And should we start with President Trump and his comments at that press conference last night? Very interesting how he's appearing to blame Ukraine for this going on so long, saying you should have made the deal.
Yeah, it's difficult, this, isn't it? Because it goes against the instincts that many of us in the UK and probably the rest of Europe feel, in that we would like to see Ukraine have a clear and decisive victory. So much of our own national story is based around our victory in World War II, when it was nice and clear, wasn't it? Right? We were the good guys, they were the bad guys, very easy, and then we won, and we got to build the world after it. The sad reality is that when you have countries like Russia that have nuclear weapons, the calculation is different, right? The aim is really not to lose, and to not lose the whole world if someone as horrible and evil as Putin decides to start launching nuclear weapons, and that has to change these kinds of calculations. And it means then that these negotiations are going to be unpleasant, and that Ukraine's not going to get everything that it wants by a long way. And the United States is waking up to the fact that it has, for the first time in a very long time, a peer competitor in China that it needs to focus all of its own considerable resources on. And the last thing is that we in Europe have just not done nearly enough. Right? We're a rich continent full of rich countries and smart, talented people. Why are we not paying our own way in the defence of our own continent and expecting American taxpayers to do it for us?
Well, James, just hold that thought, and as we bring in Alex Verashov, who is a Russian journalist, on all of this. Alex, what about these talks? And, you know, the one thing, whether we in the West like it or not, we have got to see things through Russian eyes to understand and bring a resolution to this conflict, surely.
Of course, I don't know what the mood is like in the West, but from here, for sure, it looks like Mr. Putin has outmaneuvered everyone once again, because it doesn't matter how these negotiations will develop. Russia has already got more than enough from them. But let me fill you in on all the drama step by step, because being a toxic couple, America and Ukraine are going through another breakup right now. And it all started with the miserable St. Valentine's Day at the Munich Security Conference, when US Vice President Vance basically said that Washington is no longer interested in spending money on Kiev's security. And what did the Americans do right away? They jumped into a rebound relationship by flirting with Russia. So Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin had the nice friendly co. All this led to these peace negotiations in Riyadh.
Yeah. Alex, James, sorry, I'd just like to bring you in here. This has all the hallmarks of a business deal and saving money for America, surely, making money for America.
No, I don't think that's the way to look at this. And this idea that somebody like Putin has managed to outmaneuver everybody, it's very easy to do that to some extent when you have nuclear weapons and, you've rattled the sabre and threatened to do it. And Putin has said such mad, awful things. A world that doesn't have Russia in it is a world that shouldn't really exist anyway at all, right? These are scary things when you realise that this person has been in power for, 25 years, who knows the state of his own physical health, of his mental health, but he's pointing nuclear weapons at you. You have to negotiate in a different kind of way. And I think that's the heart of all of this. Trump wants to get this issue sorted and resolved so that resources and attention can be spent into other areas. You've got Iran to have to deal with. You've got, as I said before, China to deal with. And when you've got France and Germany still with lots of money, Poland doing a great job on its own defence, the UK that should be doing a lot more, it doesn't seem unreasonable for us to pick up that burden and start policing it. So if there's a ceasefire and you get a no-fly zone or you get whatever it may be, it doesn't seem unreasonable that European troops should be the ones who are doing that and trying to help Ukraine as best it can keep the rest of its sovereignty and to make itself so impregnable that Putin never tried to take another bite out of it.
And one thing that did come out of these talks in Saudi between Russian representatives and US representatives was this demand for President Zelensky of Ukraine to hold elections. Now, of course, that does raise concerns, doesn't it, that Russia would use that ballot to bring in a pro-Putin candidate who would be favourable to this sort of peace deal that we're hearing about.
Yeah, and that's a big concern. I think it's stupid to do an election before this is all done. In the UK, we had an election in 1935, and then not again until 1945, until the war was over in Europe, at least. And also we saw a big change of government there, but that was a nice free and fair election, the way that Britain had pioneered the world in. I think this idea that Russia will be able to get away with installing a pro-Putin candidate is for the birds, actually. Russia probably thinks they can do it, but the number of international people who would come in to oversee some of this, and I suspect the Americans will play along with it, thinking that's what Putin wants. But actually, you mention the word Putin to anybody in Ukraine, they'll spit at your feet, right? They have had their own sense of national self-identity as distinct from Russia, so galvanized and strengthened by, understandably, those Russian, I won't say that word, bombing them all day for years and years. I'm not sure you would get a more pro-Putin candidate.
But Alex, let's see this again through Russia's eyes, and when you look back over the past 35 years, there you are, you're right up into Germany, Russian influence, and now that's all gone. That has all been eroded. Russians obviously see this very, very differently, and I think in a way that it's not reflected in the West.
Of course, because from Russia's perspective, it wasn't the Western coalition, it was the Soviet Union that paid with the lives of 27 million people to stop the Nazi aggression. But let's go back to the modern times. Why I was saying that this negotiation process is a major victory for Russia, because let me remind you that in 3 years, we have not had a big summit between Russia and America like this. And I think this event actually marks the return of Russia to the global order, because without even giving any concessions, the Kremlin has managed to restore diplomatic relations with America. The two countries have agreed that the diplomats will go back. We're going to restore the staffs of the embassies. And of course, there is way more that Russia will try to negotiate, as, for example, Ukraine's non-membership in NATO, probably the recognition of Crimea, as well as the lifting of all economic sanctions. I remind you that currently Russia is the most sanctioned country in the world. And of course, it hampers Russia's international business. And let's see where it goes. I think a lot of it will depend on whether Trump and Putin can get along. And there are big chances that they will, actually. The two men are white conservatives. They both have been convicted, but both remain in power. And most importantly, I think both presidents don't really like the Ukrainian leader Zelensky that much. So let's see where it goes from there. But I think here in Russia, we're pretty optimistic.
Interesting. Alex, thank you very much indeed. James, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Alex, very interesting point there. He said both Putin and Trump don't really like Zelensky very much. Do you believe that?
Yeah, well, this was a lot of the controversy around Trump's first impeachment, wasn't it? About whatever the goings-on were between him and Zelensky the first time round. And, of course, Biden was the president in power when the war started. And a lot of Zelensky's survival was based on telling Biden and the Biden administration how great and wonderful it was. And that's not going to endear you to Trump.
Trump doesn't forget.
Right. Like an elephant.
Yeah.
OK, we'll speak again later. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, James. Now, 15 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, has been accused of fabricating his CV after describing himself as a solicitor despite never qualifying. Speaking to the Commons almost 10 years ago, he claimed he worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre before switching careers. However, he never actually qualified and has left his training contract to run for Parliament in 2010.
The Home Office are to introduce stricter rules for retailers selling knives and tougher penalties for those failing to enforce them. This is part of the government's aim to increase the protection of young people from knife crime following tragedies after unlicensed sales of the weapons. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined their plans.
There have to be checks all the way along the way. That includes the new double age verification checks, also checks on deliveries so you don't just get doorstep drops. And we're setting up a new policing unit to be able to pursue these online knife sales that are breaking the law.
The Vatican has announced that Pope Francis has pneumonia in both lungs. He's been suffering from a respiratory infection for over a week and was admitted to hospital on Friday. The Vatican added in a statement that laboratory tests, chest x-rays and the clinical conditions of the Holy Father continue to present a complex picture, but he remains in good spirits.
And the drummer from the hit band The Jam, Rick Buckler, has died aged 69. Bandmate Paul Weller broke the news on X last night by writing, "We went far beyond our dreams and what we made stands the test of time. My deepest sympathy to all his family and friends."
Fingers crossed, it might be a nice sunny day today. Tim Morgan will tell you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way for the next few days, turning much, much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will bring with it increasingly windy conditions as well, so some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west 11 or 12 degrees and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Last night, Formula One had a big event. It showcased the cars from 10 teams, all 10 teams for the upcoming season.
Paul Coyte's going to be here next to tell us all about it.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Last week, Christie's Auction House in New York announced that it was holding an auction devoted solely to art created with artificial intelligence. Nearly 6,000 people have signed an open letter calling on Christie's to cancel the sale over concerns that the technology behind such AI art pieces exploits human artists and can potentially violate their copyright. And there are broader ethical questions at play too. Where do the boundaries of art lie? With me now is James Thomas from Martin Stanmore Auctions. James, very good to see you indeed. I don't quite see how you can have art without a human being. I mean, art to me is something which is produced by a human being which expresses something about the human condition. To me, that cannot be produced by a machine. How do you react to that?
I agree completely with what you're saying there. I think for us at Martin Stanmore, we're very much about sort of getting behind artists in a traditional method.
I sometimes say to my team, you know, I've got a piece to camera to do now. Find out what AI would say that I would say. And, of course, what it comes up with. It doesn't have enough knowledge about what I've just experienced, so it's not a perfect example. But it certainly gets the tone. And, therefore, I mean, I'm completely replaceable. I mean, you know, the next series that I do... Say that. Well, thank you so much. The next series I do of Railway Judges, you could perfectly well have an avatar and AI producing words that sound like mine.
It is very scary. It is very scary. And I think for collectors and investors, it's a bit scary for them too. I mean, a lot of our collectors at Martin Stanmore that we speak to, they very much prefer things that come from traditional artists, not just sort of blue chip works, but also up and coming artists.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
The Ukrainian situation, a lot of you get in touch today. Good morning, Maureen. How on earth can Trump say that Ukraine started the war? Nose in a book. Disappointing to hear Trump's words last night. Has he called for Russia to hold an election? Anything there catch your eye, Ellie?
Jeffrey says regarding Ukraine, again, the same point, why doesn't Russia hold elections? And expert says if anyone has listened to any interviews on Russia's ceasefire, then you'll know it's first meeting purely to agree to get round the table, nothing else.
Yeah.
The EU and the UK are talking about steps 567, and yet we're not even at step 2.
OK, a lot of sport last night, some exciting stuff. Paul, good morning to you.
Morning. Brendan Rodgers, yesterday, we were talking about him, the Celtic manager, said that he wants Celtic to go to Bayern Munich and go for it. Play without fear. They were 2-1 down in the first leg of this playoff in the Champions League. So to get into the last 16, they've got to win. So anyway, go out to Munich, and a lot of people are thinking, you know what, this is going to be a walkover for Bayern Munich. But Celtic were terrific. Really, really good. They went 1-0 up after 62 minutes. The Munich fans, everybody's getting a little nervous, and they went wave after wave, and they were terrific, and they played exactly as Brendan Rodgers wanted them to play.
But then,
as always happens in these sorts of situations, 40 seconds before the whistle goes, the ball comes in, bounces out, Kasper Schmeichel makes a great save, and there's Alphonso Davies who scores
the
equaliser, which means that they go out.
Yeah.
And then that was it. And there you can see Celtic players just can't believe it. But that's the thing with great teams. You often say, oh, so lucky right at the end. They keep going. They keep going. They never give in. And they scored right at the very end.
It would have got them half an hour extra extra time, but who knows what way it would have gone. But they did play well. They played very well.
They did play very well. I mean, Brendan Rodgers was really proud of them. Let's hear what Brendan had to say.
A mixture of, firstly, pride in the performance level. You know, we have to remember this is Bayern Munich, and I think everyone had talked about that before the game and the challenges that we have here. But I thought performance-wise we were outstanding in the game. Played without any fear.
See, no fear. Played with no fear. Yeah, did very well.
Okay. City play tonight.
Yep, Real Madrid. So they're down 3-2. Pep Guardiola, he'd said earlier in the week that he gives them a 1% chance of getting... Pep, come on. So he gives them a 1% chance of going through, although he's now said he lied. So I don't know whether he's now gone up to 5, whether he's gone up to 10%, but that's Pep for you. But anyway, 3-2 down, Man City playing tonight. Terry Gibson, Spanish football expert, will join us a little bit later to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, we'll speak to Terry in an hour's time. Hey, cracker in the Premier League, Villa against Liverpool.
I know,
7
that really is going to be a game. See, a lot of Liverpool fans I'm speaking to are a little nervous about how things are going, but they've got to keep grinding out results. So
yeah, but Villa, a good side with a good manager.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I switched on the telly last night, and there was a big party going on for Formula One.
Yes, 75th anniversary of Formula One, and it's never been like it is now. I mean, it's since the Drive to Survive, the Netflix series, they've really captured the American younger audience as well, and it seems to be working. So it's the 75th launch, and we've got a little bit early. I'll tell you who everybody is. It's at the O2 last night. New season starts on March the 16th in Melbourne. Now, there we are. So there's Ferrari, and there's Lewis Hamilton, new Ferrari driver, of course, and Charles Leclerc. It's probably the most handsome person in the world. Next to you, Eamonn.
Ellie, are you into this?
F1?
McLaren there?
No, not really.
No.
See, they've made a really big deal. I mean, it was 16,000 people were at the O2 yesterday. It sold out in 10 minutes to see... Now, look, what's all this about? So let's dance and let's celebrate around there because they're all playing their music. It's the real razzmatazz. Max Verstappen there and Liam Lawson for Red Bull. I mean, who's the guy on the left? Well, I mean, what's he doing? Where do they get him from? I don't know.
It's like rent-a-crowd.
I mean, quite frankly, it is. I think they're probably... can you dance around like a fool? There we are. And Aston Martin, you've got Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso. And
the thing is, a lot of people are really into it and they love
really
the whole showbiz event of it and whatever it is. But I've been to one F1 event at Silverstone, and honestly, the atmosphere was nice, the sociability was nice, I get that, but it was just simply...
And it was over, like that.
Yeah, it just goes past your eye, and that's all you see of it, really.
I suppose.
But anyway...
I'm not going to disagree.
No.
I'm not going to disagree.
But yet, when I look back nostalgically at sort of like James Hunt or Jackie Stewart or Graham Hill, I see some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, but you know what you like about that?
What?
It's kind of like It's the characters. You remember Graham Hill with his pencil-thin moustache, James Hunt, who was a bit of a boy, wasn't he, in his day? But what they've tried to do, for example, the Monaco Grand Prix, which is there probably because of the history and because it's known around... You can't get rid of the Monaco Grand Prix. So now they're going to have 2 pit stops just to try and make it more of a race, less a procession, which is what it seems to be these days. Bigger cars, small streets. So it's always tricky to do that.
No, I'm smiling because yesterday... Forget the Formula One, we're done with that.
There's only another 16 cars to go.
We had a little mention of tennis, which I said, don't bother mentioning that, don't bother mentioning that. And Miss Ellie beside me saying, oh, I feel my £100 coming to fruition.
Spoke too soon.
So what happened to Emma Raducanu then?
Well, she's out.
Yeah, in the Dubai Open, whatever that is, or whatever.
You know what? I had hope. You've got to have hope, people.
You know what?
If you don't have hope, what do you have?
It's not going to happen. I'm beginning to fall. I mean, she played. I think it's ironic that she played Karolina Muchova, and Muchova is pretty much what Emma Raducanu's career could well be. I mean, that's maybe a little unfair, but you've got to give it... I mean, she's injury after injury. She's still young, I know, but I don't want to write her off, but it's not... She's a professional tennis player, but is she up there with the true elite? Is she going to win another major? Is she going to win another Grand Slam? It's going to be extremely tough, but she's
a lovely girl and a marketing dream, but she's not a tennis player. She's not a great.
She's not a great. She's a tennis player. She's a good professional tennis player, but whether she's actually going to... I mean, for crying out loud, she won the US Open, which you can never take away from anybody. I mean, it's a magnificent
she'll never win anything else, but, you know... But, no, I agree with you.
I know, but I feel bad saying it, but I don't want to be going, oh, yeah, another person writing off Emma Raducanu.
No, but to win anything, whether it's a football title or whatever, you've got to have an element of luck. And she played all her cards in that tournament.
Absolute 100% brilliance as well. It's so hard to win anything. Yeah. Look at all the greats that never did. So for Emma Raducanu to win something...
But you know what it's not hard to do? Get a speeding ticket and end up doing a speed awareness course.
How long are you going to be on this?
I'm just saying. You're just saying.
It happens to the best of us, Paul Coit.
Yes.
No, it happens to the worst of you, the two of you.
I'd say, if we had the stats to hand... 99% of people have done a speed awareness.
So do you never... I mean, I know it's illegal, and I would never want you to admit breaking the law on live television, but have you never driven over the speed limit anywhere?
I might have, but not in any dangerous way.
No, I mean, we weren't driving
I'm quite aware of speed limits. That's just sort of comes into my mind. If it says it's 50 miles an hour here, it's 50 miles an hour. That's what I say to
He's just a model man, really.
Some people just don't see the sign.
That's my problem. I don't see the sign.
You don't see the sign? Is that what it was?
And I'm very bad with the colours as well on the traffic lights.
See, I'm from Romford and therefore a boy racer.
Anyway, the sign and the colours for the Great British Giveaway is all there. Have a look. You could be a winner.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is, 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
God, no,
fun fact,
I've got to say,
in 2022, 1.76 million people went on a speed awareness course. You were clearly not one of them, but a lot of people do go. No, but
either people are completely ignorant of what they should do on the roads, which is probably quite true, or it's a cash cow, it's just a money-making exercise. Do you think it actually changes you, though, once you do the course?
I really liked my speed awareness course. I learnt loads.
But do you now think of speed in a different way? Yes, you're more cautious.
Yes, it worked for me.
Yeah. Good.
Better than points in that sense, I think. But anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Right, we're going to go through the newspapers. Exciting day today. Pat Sharp and Claire Muldoon battling it out after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Trains have been stopped between Cambridge and Hitchin, where overnight engineering works have overrun. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed southbound from the Elstow interchange to the A6 Marshalleys roundabout near Bedford for emergency repairs after an accident and fuel spill. In London, there's a lane closed northbound in the Blackwall Tunnel after an accident with queues in the Woolwich Road flyover. There's reduced Heathrow Express train service because of a track fault. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 10 minutes. In westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In East Sussex, the A267 is partly blocked southbound by an abandoned vehicle on Mayfield Road in Frant. In Hampshire, the A303 is closed westbound from Andover to Middle Wallop because of overrunning roadworks, and trains in Hampshire have been stopped between Portsmouth and Southsea. Both Havant and Fareham, where overnight engineering works have overrun. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We say hello, good morning to Claire Muldoon and Pat Sharp.
You do. Morning. Hi.
These are the newspapers that they are going to be reviewing today. We begin with The Telegraph.
And that leads with President Zelensky could fall, the paper says, as the price of peace, as Trump says elections must be held in Ukraine to bring an end to the war.
Times reports that British Typhoons may have to keep the peace in Ukraine. The fighter jets could avert the need for troops.
The Daily Express leads with furious farmers claiming their blood was boiling at the collapse of talks over inheritance tax changes.
Metro, debt-ridden Thames Water, get this, is getting a bailout, £3 billion. Why?
And The Sun leads with the Duchess of Sussex facing accusations of copyright for her new lifestyle logo.
Well, there we go. Right, where are we going to begin?
Should we start with Jonathan Reynolds, Pat? And this is about he's being accused of fabricating his CV.
Yes, now, I'm thinking about how many bits I could have added to mine over the years, but I suppose being...
And wish you had.
Don't we all? Being just a humble DJ, I don't think, I would have got away with too much. But at the end of the day... what was he actually doing? Was he practising as a solicitor?
He was training to be a solicitor, yeah. Okay. And therefore he would have been practising. He would have done solicitorial work.
Soliciting of a kind.
Yeah.
Yes, there we are. Lawyering. So, this all goes back to Rachel Reeves and what we can and can't do with our CVs. A lot of people apparently with their CVs have not updated them for many years anyway. So there are things on there that perhaps would have been a bit of poetic licence.
Do you not think this gives rise, though, to the integrity of the government? And I think that's the key thing.
That's the thing.
I think that is the thing. We all perhaps might embellish or, add a wee bit extra onto our CV. Can you say curriculum vitae? Can you make that any longer? I'm not sure. But when you look through CVs as an employer, all you want to see is one page anyway. Yeah. Why on earth would you want to make things up?
But why would he need to make it up?
That's my point as well.
And Rachel Reeves, I sort of look and I think, you're important people doing important jobs, live on it. No one's thinking back to saying, oh, yeah, you were a solicitor once. I just think, why bother? Why bother even mentioning?
Well, I think with his perspective, with his job, I think Jonathan Reynolds, as Business Secretary, really has to be a beacon of fortitude, of resilience and of integrity. And I think by stories like this being leaked, I think that kind of ebbs it away, kind of knocks it off a bit. It's not like he said he was a brain surgeon, but still, you know, he was training to be a solicitor without a law degree. Why then would you put that in if you weren't?
Has he got to where he is by adding that bit anyway? Perhaps not. He did it anyway, so maybe...
You could say the same about Rachel Reeves, couldn't you? I mean, she was an economist at the Bank of England, but she was an economist for 5 years rather than 10. I mean, what's the need for the embellishment? But it's a question of trust, isn't it? Because how can you trust the Cabinet to run the country if they can't be honest about their work experience?
OK. Let's talk about what women in the army, and the head of the army has written to senior officers condemning appalling and shameful behaviour as more than 1,000 women share stories of abuse. And the front page of the papers has got a picture of, tell us.
This is Jaisley Beck, who's a young woman who took her own life after horrific treatment. Claire, you've got this story, haven't you, in the Times?
I have, and it is absolutely awful. You know, it's, again, women at the hands of the misogynistic men and the patriarchy. But I've got a thing about women in the army. I don't think men and women should serve together in the army. I think that if you want to go into the army as a woman, I think you have to realise that it's going to be different for you. Not saying, and I'm not minimising anything of the abuse that has gone on, but you're physically different in so many ways from men.
But Claire,
therefore, your experience is going to be different.
You could say the same, and I'm not disagreeing with you. You could say the same for police officers, for instance, or people in the ambulance service or fire service.
There's an issue of morale here. There really is, both in terms of your physical, sexual morale, but also your actual ability to work mentally with members of the opposite sex. And obviously, I'm not saying...
It's different, Claire. I used to watch a lot of this with the police, and in Northern Ireland you had Land Rovers and there was 4 officers in the back plus 1 woman.
Yeah.
And I could hear it all the time. I would hear the way she was spoken to or whatever. And the way women had to deal with the Pat was to laugh along with it or treat it or whatever, and they become quite blokey.
Banter.
Yeah.
Not a good word.
No.
But so back to this point, this poor girl, this child, she was 19, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
You know, she was put through the most horrific crimes, the highest level of sexual abuse, of mental abuse than I think any woman could do. And she took her own life because of it. This is systemic abuse within the army. And it's all very well the head of the army saying, we need to tackle this, we need to be above board with it. We shouldn't have to even be having this discussion, for heaven's sake.
That's because you're saying keep them apart.
Yes.
And you think that's the only way ahead for this?
Well, how many more times have we got to read the fact that women are being persecuted, women are being killed, women are being horrifically abused at the hands of men all the time? So what is the answer? I don't know. Women want to serve in the army, they must be allowed to serve in the army. But I don't think it's good for morale for women and men to serve alongside each other.
It doesn't get to the root of the problem, though, does it, Claire, in terms of the behaviour of these men?
No, but it's behaviour of men intrinsically. Bad men exist. Bad men exist more than you think.
But this appears to be an endemic.
I agree with you more than you think. I know what way I look towards women and how I treat women and whatever, and I don't see any difference. You know, you're my friend.
Yes.
You're Claire.
Yeah.
I don't see you're Claire, a woman or whatever.
No.
But I then come across, and I see this all the time, language that men, and particularly professionals, you know, people who are like, well, it's hard to say, but people who have to work with the body, you know, often. And I think they speak in inappropriate ways. I've heard it, I've seen it, I've witnessed it. And it's not right. There is an abuse away forward. Do you find some men speak to you in an inappropriate way?
Yeah, I think all women can relate to that. Yeah. It does happen, sadly. But this is really the most alarming story. I mean, 1,000 women have now come out and spoken about their experience.
And I think that's a drop in the ocean.
And
I really do.
Looking at some of this, and I won't be able to share very much because we're on a breakfast programme, of course, but looking at these stories of abuse that have been shared in the Times today, they all have really similar themes, don't they? Women having to lock themselves in bedrooms away from men who are essentially preying on them.
I think men in the army and men all over prey on people. It's not just women. I think you'll find if you're gay in the army, I think gay men will have similar stories to tell.
OK, well, if you've got a story to tell, have your say, get in touch with us this morning and we will reflect that. Pat and Claire will be back very shortly after we take a break and show you the travel weather where the sun is shining around Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Winds from the north will bring a real chill to Greece and Turkey over the next few days. Meanwhile, plenty of sunny skies in Spain. There's that northerly wind making many of the Greek islands colder than the UK. Certainly chillier across parts of Croatia. Some sunny spells in Italy, along with a few showers. Fine and sunny weather for the Balearics and southern Spain, along with the Canaries. And the breeze here will be easing. But that cold wind will continue to blow across the Greek islands into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
That's football.
Well,
you know, it's the hope that kills you.
It does. It gives you highs, it gives you lows. I mean, if you're an Everton fan at the moment, you probably had far too many lows. But as you know, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan.
Well, you must be having a huge high.
But you know, you had one of the greatest footballers ever to grace the game, Mike, and that was Dixie Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. William Ralph Dean. Didn't like being called Dixie, but that was his nickname. And he was born in 1907. He was my grandfather's best mate. I'm an Everton shareholder. I've been, you know, attached to the club all my life, and so was my father, so was my grandfather, our greatest ever player.
So back in the day when players like Dixie Dean were playing football for big crowds in, you know, a proper...
72,000.
Yeah, a proper working class sport back in the day, weren't it, football? Not like it is today. You've got to be pretty wealthy to afford a ticket.
Even in the 70s, right, and I've seen some, you know, I do like looking back on the football that I watched as a kid. Even in the 70s now, I've seen pictures of the turnstiles, as we used to call them, with a sign at the top, 5 shillings for the Eastern Terrace. 5 shillings. Yeah. Last time I turned down a ticket to go to a football match was Arsenal, who wanted me to pay £830 for a seat in an executive lounge. And though I could have afforded it, because I've worked all my life like you, I just thought at that point, that's ridiculous.
Well,
you know?
You should have told him you were Keir Starmer's security man. You'd have probably got him for nothing.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But you know, you go back to the the 1930s and 1940s, even the 1960s and 70s. You know, the footballers would walk to the ground and play a game, and then walk back and go for a few beers in the pub.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're here with Claire Muldoon and Pat Sharp going through the papers. And Pat, let's talk about this story, shall we? Front page of the Daily Mail today. This is a row between Kemi Badenoch, Sir Keir Starmer and the judiciary. What's going on?
Well, basically, the row is that Kemi and the Prime Minister disagree with a ruling in an immigration case which allowed a Palestinian family to gain asylum in the UK. This is through the Ukraine refugee scheme. Now, the argument that anybody's going to have here is that who has the final say in things like this, or important things, is the judge the final say? Because according to the Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch as such, they're hitting back and saying, no, we should be able to say what we believe in.
Yeah.
You've made the wrong decision.
I think judges can have the final say, but it doesn't mean to say you can't disagree with them.
No, it doesn't mean to say you can't disagree with them either. And also on that, I think it's up to Parliament to make the laws and the judges to, you know, roll out the system in accordance with those laws.
Yes.
Instead of the judge rewriting the law.
Well, that's exactly what Kemi Badenoch was saying, wasn't she? That Parliament is sovereign. But then this is Lady Chief Justice saying, well, actually, it's your job to protect us as judges and protect our decisions. And
yes, and we shouldn't criticise them. We shouldn't criticise them over not sending a young boy and his family back to Albania because he didn't like chicken nuggets.
That was another one, wasn't it, last week?
Yeah. And what else was there? There was a load of nonsense going on everywhere.
Yeah, the Telegraph had a different story every day last week, didn't they, with different decisions in these tribunals.
But what would happen if anybody goes to a court and the judge makes a decision and anybody like us guys are allowed to say, well, disagree?
But you're allowed to do that. You're
but it doesn't affect the final decision, does it?
No, it doesn't affect the decision. And, I mean, you may say it's contempt of courts. You may find yourself in trouble, but I don't think so. I think you'd be allowed to say.
I remember disagreeing about some points on the licence once and they're saying I didn't see the thing come up on the motorway, the gantry.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's bad luck. See ya.
What speed were you doing? Were you going so quickly, Pat, you couldn't read
2 or 3
the
miles an hour,
numbers?
2 or 3 miles an hour over, Claire.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. I went all the way to the court to settle it, and they just said,
hard luck, your fault. We were saying today there are 1.5 million speed awareness.
1.67 million people took the speed awareness course in 2022.
Online now.
It is online now, but I think that's a shame, Pat.
Yeah.
I liked it when they did it in the hotel and with the biscuits.
You like the biscuits and the coffee? I knew that was coming.
The biscuits and the tea and the coffee. I had a lovely time.
I know
lovely
too
day
much
out.
about speed awareness courses.
Yeah, I think you do. So how many have you done in total?
No, I've only done one online and one before, and I've got a clean licence.
Oh, very nice. Very nice too.
He's
Claire,
only done one online and one before. That's 2. Right?
Yeah.
He's only. What do you mean? I've done none. I've been driving for 45
and that's very good. And
years.
I said you were a model man. Didn't I say that earlier?
Stop.
And he liked it.
I love it.
And he loved
on a
it.
speed awareness
I've
course?
not been on a speed awareness course.
That doesn't surprise me because you're very sensible and
No,
good.
I lost my licence.
Oh.
I was caught doing 111. That was slowing down in Dumfries and Galloway.
Wow.
111 and what, a 30 zone?
No, on the motorway thing.
70 zone.
Yeah.
How did you get up to 111?
I had a very good car at the time.
Well, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm not laughing.
I
I'm
would
not
have felt like I
condoning
was
that.
flying.
I'm not condoning that. Speed's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Listen to Eamonn on that one. Claire, this is not a very nice story, isn't it? Poor Pope Francis has got a complex case of double pneumonia.
Yeah.
Vatican says.
Yeah. So he's 88, but I'm more interested in tagging this to the film Conclave.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's rubbish.
Oh,
no.
So,
It's absolutely rubbish.
Oh, no.
Go back to the
Don't waste
bastards.
your time.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing it up, Pat. You're right. Did you watch it on Sunday night?
I saw a lot of hellos. Yes, well done. It's us.
Yeah. Well, Conclave won the best film.
Yep.
It's not worth it at all. Anyway, if people's perception of the Catholic Church, when they go to choose the next Pope, because clearly Pope Francis will die at some point, because, spoiler alert, we all do, then they will be doing the same process as was depicted in that film.
So I would reckon it's sort of like a political or mafia type film where the people who are in power manipulate and whatever. Is it not sort of intriguing, exciting?
Well, no. I think the book is better. I've heard the book is better from people that have read the Richard Harris novel. But again, it's like the Da Vinci Code thing. The Da Vinci Code was a great book, but the film was full of absolute holes, and it was scandalous, actually, in a lot of it. So There we are.
Oh, I hope he gets better.
No-star
though.
review from me.
Pope Francis, I do hope he gets better. I like him.
Do you?
Good.
Pat, Rick Butler, 69 years of age, he was a drummer with The Jam, has passed away.
Yeah, so Rick was probably the lesser Jam member from the point of view of not being prominent. You would always remember Paul Weller and Bruce Foxton with his iconic jumps on the bass guitar, and Rick was at the back doing the drums. Very sad. He's the first member of the original Jam to pass away. There is, of course, a new, as people will know if they are into The Jam, a new version of The Jam called From The Jam, and they've been playing longer, and they still play to this day, than the original Jam. Confused? You won't be. But I think at the end of the day, it's very sad to lose a member of such a big band who was so iconic.
So young as well,
Yeah.
69.
Yeah, very iconic,
Yeah.
very iconic. And they
what
had
a
so
loss.
many. They were one of the first bands to come straight in at #1 with songs.
OK. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Claire. Here's the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way through the next few days, turning much, much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west, 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed southbound towards the M1 at the Elstow interchange in Bedford for repairs after an accident yesterday. In London, it's down to a single lane northbound in the Blackwall Tunnel after an accident with queues from the A2 at the Sun in the Sands. There are delays of up to 40 minutes with some cancelled trains into and out of Victoria Station in London because of a faulty train, and reduced service on the Heathrow Express because of a track fault. Now, on the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In East Sussex, the A267 is partly blocked southbound with an abandoned vehicle on Mayfield Road in Frant. In Hampshire, the A303 is closed westbound from Picket 20 to Middle Wallop at Andover, where overnight roadworks have overrun, and there are delays of up to 50 minutes to trains between Bournemouth and Southampton Central. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We're giving you not one, but two chances to win this month, with two prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For another chance to win, Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. British Typhoon fighter jets could be used to police the skies over Ukraine to help secure peace.
That news comes as President Trump blames Ukraine for Russia's invasion, demands they hold elections, and looks to end the war.
This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago.
Knife crime crackdown. The Home Office to introduce stricter rules for buying blades online. It's in a bid to protect young people.
That's why this is a major crackdown on online knife sales in order to take lethal weapons out of the hands of children.
The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, is the latest cabinet minister to be accused of fabricating their CV, claiming he's a solicitor, despite never qualifying.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day for what is now my constituency.
2 weeks, my show is coming out, which I'm so excited for, and also my business.
Another Markle makeover. The Duchess of Sussex takes to social media, revealing the plans for a new brand.
An inspiring story, Army veteran Craig Woods, who aims to be the first triple amputee to sail the Pacific, talking to him after 9 this morning.
As Disney toned down the content guidance following Donald Trump's anti-DEI stance, we're asking, is it time to ditch trigger warnings?
Ladies and gentlemen, you are very welcome always to our fashion shows.
Well, you're going to be hearing and seeing the 90-year-old care home residents redefining London Fashion Week.
And in the sports, Celtic led Bayern Munich with just 40 seconds left on the clock until they conceded and then went out of the Champions League last night. 75th season of F1 was launched in London last night with a very glitzy event at the O2, with every team unveiling their new cars. And Pep Guardiola says he lied when he gave Man City a 1% chance of beating Real Madrid tonight to stay in the Champions League. We all know they've got at least 7%.
It's turning much, much milder over the next few days, but also much wetter and windier for all of us. Find out more in the full forecast coming up.
It is a Wednesday morning. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, British troops could be used to keep the peace in Ukraine as the government explores options to provide troops or Typhoon jets to help Ukraine.
It comes as President Trump is demanding President Zelensky holds an election that could oust the leader from office following talks between America and Russia.
wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election? That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. You know, Ukraine is being just wiped out.
Well, President Trump also supported Sir Keir Starmer's call for British peacekeeping troops to be sent to Ukraine.
To do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine. I mean, I know France has mentioned it, others have mentioned it, UK has mentioned it, but yeah, if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, you know, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both.
So Ukraine, what happens next? Political advisor James Price with me now on this one. So Trump, he's set down the rules here, and it looks like Europe will have to do a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, it shows how, I suppose, strategically weak Europe is, that it's being excluded from these talks. This is a war on our continent. It's a war that we've done some bits to try and help the Ukrainians with. In overall terms, European countries have given a little bit more to Ukraine than America has. But of course, America spends a vast amount more on its own defence and on policing every shipping lane around the world, on the conflict in the Middle East, on the peer competitor that it now has in China. And it seems completely ludicrous to me that for so long, only a handful of European countries have even spent the 2% of our GDP that you're supposed to spend for NATO.
Well, James, just on the question of spending and prices, we've got the inflation figures, have we?
Yeah, inflation figures have just come in. Inflation has increased to 3% in January from 2.5% in December. Economists have said this is largely down to higher private school fees, of course driven by the Labour government's move to end the long-standing VAT exemption for private schools on January the 1st. They say this is a major cause of the rise. What do you make of this, James?
Well, there's a lot more people going to private school than I would have thought then, if it affects the inflation figures like that.
Well, this is what happens when you tinker too much with the economy and not knowing really what you're doing. These are the highest figures for a long time. And I suppose what Labour will do is say, oh, well, this isn't real inflation. It's only on those very rich people who get to send their kids off to the posh schools. And of course, the people who go to the really posh schools, the Eatons or whatever, they're not affected by the price hikes. They can afford to pay any amount of it. People are actually being hurt by this are those who do two jobs, those who scrimp and save and give up on fancy holidays to try and give their kids a better life, which is what everybody would want to do. I didn't get to go to one of these fancy posh schools, and you talk to people who do. Yeah, they're great. Brilliant places, but therefore we should be copying what they do in the state system rather than dragging people down. And there's not nearly enough spaces actually in the rest of the state school system to accommodate these people. It's going to be very cruel.
I agree with you, James. There's a lot of very ordinary people who work extraordinarily hard to get their children into private school.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, the biggest people who are actually going to suffer from this, the parents and the children themselves, are those with special educational needs and disabilities, because private schools, independent schools, whatever you want to call them, do a great job of looking after kids with those more complicated needs. You start dumping those guys into the state school system that doesn't have either the resources or the technical know-how to deal with it. The very most vulnerable children in the country are the people who are going to be most affected by Labour's class war.
There's such a jealousy towards levels of education. There really is. I mean, I'm a council house boy, born and bred. Somehow I passed my 11 plus. I got to go to an amazing grammar school, St Malachy's College in Belfast. It was the making of me. I'd look back at life and I'd say that was the making of me. It was 7 happiest years of my life, I have to say. But in theory, I shouldn't have been there. Would my life have been different if I hadn't have gone? You bet it would. You bet. I mean, I have brothers, 2 of us passed, 3 of us failed. And you look, and our lives are very different between white collar and blue collar as a result.
I didn't know you were a grammar school boy. I'm a grammar school boy as well. And again, the kind of class warfare that you saw in the second half of the 20th century, people wanting to destroy this, the whole rhetoric about grammar schools is completely mad. The idea is that you have to be, if you're a smart, poor kid, you have to be thrown into these schools and drag up the level of everybody else, even the kids that don't want to learn. But you can avoid that fate as long as your parents are rich enough to pay for private school fees.
Yes,
That's obviously mad. Instead, instead we should have a meritocracy where no matter where you come from, what you do, if you're academically able, you can go into a school that helps you do that. If you're vocationally able, nothing wrong with, you know, people being much better working with their hands than I'll ever be, going and doing that and having a great career as well.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of snobbery of leftists. who don't
Raise
like
the
that.
bar, not lower the bar, I think, for those things. The argument in Northern Ireland is that our education standards are very, very good. But that the argument is that we are educating people for a jobs market that doesn't exist, right? So we're educating them to leave the country, really. And there's a lot of jealousy and envy about that as well. So you just can't be educated, do well out of it, and move on somewhere else.
The kind of tall poppy syndrome that I think all elements of this country sort of suffer from. You don't get that in America, right? You see someone in America doing well and they go, great job, I'm proud of you, I'm going to join you there one day. I mean, we've not got enough of that. We should be celebrating success and helping people to get it and to earn it themselves. Education's a great part of that. These figures show the level of pain that it's going to hit. And of course, inflation in general just hits poor people more broadly as well, and there's probably more inflation to come with some of the things that the Labour Party are going to be doing next in this country.
Exactly what economists are predicting now, that we're going to see inflation rising, obviously further and further away from that 2% target rate.
I mean...
Challenging times for
What can you say? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, James Price, good to see you this morning.
Appreciate it, James. Thank you.
Now, Meghan Markle's latest attempt to relaunch her lifestyle brand has hit a fresh stumbling block, with a Spanish town said to be considering legal action.
So she was forced to relaunch her brand after its initial name, American Riviera Orchard, ran into trademark issues. You would wonder why somebody would have such a rubbish name anyway, you know, but anyway, somebody has.
I watched this video yesterday and she said it was called American Riviera Orchard because it's a nickname for where she's living. And that's why she chose it.
Anyway.
But now the business is called As Ever. That's the new name of the business. But of course, this relaunch has now descended into a farce, it would seem, because officials in the Spanish town of Mallorca have accused the Duchess of Sussex of copying its traditional coat of arms for the logo of her newly revamped
Well, it's pretty close, isn't it?
luxury brand. It does look very, very close, actually.
Yeah. Looks Arabic, actually. Grant Harold, hello, good morning, former royal butler. And what do you think? What do you think of the brand? What do you think of the little tree and the birdies?
It's a bit of a disaster, isn't it, for her? Because obviously she's trying to launch this brand and already she's had to rename it. And then, as you said, when I saw the logo, it's very similar, obviously, to the Spanish towns. So it's not great. And obviously this is something she's going to have to... Because I think the towns actually said they're going to possibly fight her on this. So I don't think this is a great start to her new brand.
I watched the video yesterday with Meghan Markle announcing this relaunch. What did you make of the video?
I mean, it's kind of, we've kind of seen similar videos before, haven't we? Where she's kind of obviously trying to promote some. It's almost, it's quite interesting. It's constantly this rebranding thing that's going on, which is quite interesting. We've had different kind of, you know, way back to Sussex Royal at the very beginning. Here we've now got this new lifestyle series that's coming out. Obviously, she's got this new brand that's going to go alongside it. It's very difficult because royals, as we've said many, many times before, this is not something royals typically kind of do. And obviously these are no longer, if you like, working members of the royal family, but still, Prince Harry, I keep saying, is a senior member of the royal family. So it's quite a kind of uncharted territory that they're going into. And as I said, this is a bit of a disaster because everything they seem to kind of do when it comes to branding, it just doesn't seem to work.
They seem to really be struggling to find their purpose in the US. Do you think that's fair? I mean, Prince Harry, of course, has got the Invictus Games, which is just the most wonderful thing that he has set up. But it appears that they're not obviously part of the royal family anymore in terms of working royals. They're not senior working royals, but not able to make it in the business world yet either.
You're right, Ellie. I think the Invictus Games is definitely the kind of saving grace. That's the thing that everybody kind of admires and respects them for. But then it's when they keep going back into this kind of celebrity branded lifestyle. I don't think anyone's really that hugely interested. As you said, in the States, you kind of hear people are for them, people are against them. I think most people, whether they went kind of doing this, I think we've said this so many times before that, you know, as members of the royal family, they should continue down that line and going into this kind of business world. It just, I think I'm right in saying historically with royals and kind of business, it doesn't really work. It never has, and I don't think it ever will.
Well, the man behind that business venture, Pitch to the Palace or whatever, Prince Andrew, he's a birthday boy today.
I didn't actually. There's one birthday I haven't actually remembered when it comes to the royal family. But Eamonn, as you said, I mean, in the past with the royal birthday, there'd be posts, there would be announcements. We'd know about it. I've noticed recently with Prince Andrew, obviously we don't really kind of get to hear so much about him for obvious reasons, and also I very much doubt there'll be any kind of birthday wishes on social media. So I think it's one birthday the royal family kind of I wouldn't say avoid, but we don't get a huge amount of kind of mentions when it comes to Prince Andrew these days.
How old is he, Grant? Do you know?
I'm not too sure, but I'd say he's coming up to his 70s.
65 today.
He becomes a pensioner. Are you a pensioner nowadays at 65?
I don't know if it's
used
66 these days. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Does he get his bus pass then?
Yeah, I think he does. I think you're right there. Yeah.
Might see him on his bus later on today. Grant Harold, good to see you. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Grant. Thank you very much indeed. Now we're going to give you the weather picture. Tom Morgan. Hello. Good morning.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way through the next few days, turning much, much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west, 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, if you want to be one of two brand new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash in the latest Great British Giveaway, here are all of the details that you need.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with two fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is, 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
your busy bunnies this morning expressing your views on speed courses, for instance. Patricia says, I'm 78 and I did my first course last year. The room was full of OAPs like me. One chap was 90 and very upset he was there. Robert says, at the end of my course, I was asked, will you pay more attention to speed limit signs now? I said, no, I'm too busy watching out for the potholes. So there you go.
And Stuart says, I was only 2 miles over the speed limit, so I opted for the speed awareness course. But despite nearly 60 years of experience, the sight of a 60 mile per hour plus a 60 mile per hour collision, that's 2 cars both travelling at 60 miles per hour, was truly an image I shall never forget. And it's true. I mean, it does really make you think, these courses.
Yeah, I still think they're a money-making racket, but I agree with you. When you see the way motorway police officers see these things and how crashes turn out and who's injured in them and whatever, just in the roads for everybody, it's for cyclists, for motorbikes, it's for vans, it's for cars, it's for lots of things, and you are part of it, remember that. Still to come, Disney have removed trigger warnings from classic films that they are screening. What do you think about that? We're debating that next.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, after moving to the UK from Kochi in Japan over 25 years ago, our next guest missed the taste of home and started making sushi with local ingredients.
Yes, Tomono Davies went on to establish Tomono Sushi Party, inspired by her mother's dedication to cooking fresh meals every day.
Now, while sushi is usually enjoyed in restaurants in Japan, Tomono is showing that anyone can create it at home. So here we go. She's already taught over 500 people and is now bringing her passion to even more people.
So she joins us now in the studio to give us one of her sushi masterclasses. First of all, we're a little bit nervous. We're certainly not pros. I love eating sushi, but certainly not making it.
As long as you follow my instruction, it should be that easy.
Okay, great. That's what we like to hear.
So tell us a little bit about your business and why we're here today.
Of course. So, my name is Tomono Davies. I'm originally from the place called Kochi, as you mentioned, and I'm the founder and the owner of Tomono Sushi Party. So we bring authentic, hands-on sushi making classes to homes, offices in London and home counties. Also, we run public classes, the information which you can find on my website.
Yep.
So this goes all the way back in 90s, actually, when I was a student.
Never.
The Japanese food wasn't widely available, but I really craved a beautiful, aromatic aged sushi, Japanese food. And when you're craving something, you started making your own at home. And I fell in love with the Englishman. He brought me back to UK. Then that's the time more people start asking me, can you teach me how to make sushi?
The People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, you may or may not have a channel called Disney Plus on your telly, but what it's done is it has removed trigger warnings from films and replaced them with a blander notice that details what is in the section. It's so boring. I'm sorry I'm laughing at this. Do you actually need to see the following programme is going to scare the wits out of you, or the following programme is going to have a naked person in it, or do you pay any attention to it? All it does when well, if it tells me there's going to be naked women in something, I'm more likely to watch. I have to say, well, it's supposed to scare me, isn't it? But it doesn't. Anyway.
Well, this all comes after Donald Trump, who has a public anti-DEI stance.
What is a DEI stance?
Diversity, equality and inclusion stance, has become the US president once again, of course. So we're asking this morning, is it time to just ditch trigger warnings entirely?
Right. Charlie Riley is in the studio. Charlie believes we should do just that. And there you have Chris Worrell, who thinks trigger warnings should be here to stay. Why do you feel so protected by them, Chris?
Well, Eamonn, I think, trigger warnings are like the wet floor signs of conversation. If you're walking all right, walk on past, but don't knock it over for somebody else. And we've seen here like a bit more of a right-wing cancellariat sort of stepping into Disney here with their agenda, imposing what should be a free market for Disney to decide whether they let someone know that there's an issue or not. We've had 18 signs on DVDs for years and explicit language on other music. So stepping in this way is a bit off, in my opinion.
Chris, I'm telling you, if Disney are getting rid of them, it'll be for one reason, commercial reasons. They will feel that it is affecting the amount of people that watch. They don't care about what's in them or anything else, but they do care how many people watch. Charlie Riley, tell me what you think.
Well, I just think we live in a society now where there's maybe a very small number of people, a tiny minority, that might get offended by something. In fact, I think there's a minority of people that go out just to look to be offended by something. And now it dumbs down the programme that you're supposed to watch. The whole point of watching a film or going to the theatre is to be moved, is to be made to feel uncomfortable at times. That's how you learn. That's how you change your view on the world, if that's what needs to be, if that's the point of the production that you're seeing. But the idea we now see trigger warnings on Disney films, on pantomimes. Can you believe that? If Christopher Biggins was sat here, he'd be up in arms. It's ridiculous. And I just think, the idea that we have these in place now for absolutely everything is a total nonsense, and we should just get back to what we're all used to, which is just age appropriate, whether it's 18 or 15 or universal, and that's it.
Chris, have we gone too far with trigger warnings? Do they need to be on the likes of Disney films and in pantomime shows?
Well, look, I think we talk about if someone who had an epileptic fit watching a pantomime wasn't warned about the flashing lights, you might have something to say about that. And this is, some of this is like easily preventable stuff. And bottom line is, in my opinion, I don't agree that it's just commercial reasons. I think it's a political interference and it's a right-wing cancellariat approach to moderating what people view.
Now, just explain that deeper for me. What do you mean by that?
What, a right-wing cancellariat? Well, you've got Trump and
this right-wing plot on this. Explain this to me.
Well, they've been lobbying Disney. If you look at what's been happening over there to try and make them change it.
Can somebody boost Chris's sound for me, please? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, if you look at what Trump's been doing in Ohio and some of the senators, they've been pushing a lot of an agenda to try and water these things down. And we've got to make sure that we don't, throw the baby out the bathwater. And if someone's producing a programme, whether it's Channel 4 or otherwise, it should be down to the producers what warnings people get, not politicians.
Charlie, is it political interference, getting rid of trigger warnings?
No, it's not. It's just trying to bring things back to a world of common sense. So, I mean, just to go back to the theatre sort of point, of course, if there's strobe lighting involved, you will always see a sign on a door, I think. But what you won't have, or what you shouldn't have, is a trigger warning to say that, by the way, in this production of a local pantomime, there's a man dressed as a woman. Or, the two ugly sisters are going to be played by, jocks in frocks.
This is Macbeth, and people are going to die in this, and there's going to be witches.
Exactly. And, going back to sort of things like even, Gladiator, my heavens above, a trigger warning that there might be, scenes of a violent nature. Or in Wicked, latest film, there was a trigger warning to say that, you might be offended by comments against a green-coloured woman. How many green people do you know out there?
See that green-coloured woman? She's now playing Jesus Christ.
Well, I've heard, yes. I've heard.
She's a trigger warning for that.
She's everywhere. So, I just think it's about politicians getting involved to make this country slightly more getting back to common sense approach, and it's not about overreaching. I think the reality is there's been too much overreach by the left-wing agenda blob who want to sort of dull things down, mollycoddle us all, and if we did that, we'd never go outside, we'd never open our net curtains.
Well, gentlemen, we're going outside now. Thank you both very, very much indeed. Really appreciate you having that debate, and folks watching and listening, you can have your say. We're breaking off to...
We're going to be joined now by Shadow Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, Kevin Hollinrake. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Hollinrake. And can I start by asking you about Jonathan Reynolds, please, the Business Secretary?
Should that have a trigger warning?
Well, perhaps. He's been accused of fabricating his CV after it's emerged that he repeatedly described himself as a solicitor, despite the fact he never qualified. He also told the Commons in 2014 that he worked as a solicitor in Manchester City Centre before switching careers. Some would say this is misleading the House, isn't it? Do you think he needs to resign over this?
Well, there seems to be a case to answer. I don't know the facts behind the case. I've read in the papers what probably you've read, but it's a serious offence. I mean, Johnny Reynolds always got on very well with him. He's a decent guy, but you cannot fabricate your CV. And we've seen this, of course, with Rachel Reeves, who's had to make several alterations to her CV. And now it seems Johnny Reynolds as well. So those individuals need to come to the House and explain exactly what they've said about their past and why they've said it, because there's no doubt they've used their past in Parliament to talk about their credentials, by which they can offer the voters an opportunity to vote for them in terms of being in the government. So I think having done that in Parliament, you're duty bound to come to Parliament to actually put the record straight.
Can I ask you about the inflation figures that came out about half an hour ago? Inflation increased to 3% in January, up from 2.5% in December. Economists saying a large part of that is down to higher private school fees, which of course is driven by Labour government's move to end that long-standing VAT exemption for private schools that came in on January the 1st. What's your reaction to these figures?
Well, they're hugely disappointing. I mean, if you look at the situation since June, we had a government that came in and said it wanted growth, and it proceeded to talk the whole economy down, then tax the living daylights out of it and expect the economy to grow. What we've seen over the last 6 months is the exact opposite of that. 7 months now, exact opposite of that. So you're seeing growth down. We're the fastest growing in the G7, growing economy in the G7, and we're now the slowest growing economy. We've seen unemployment up. And we've obviously seen the inflation figures today, which are really disappointing, up from 2% when they took over to 3% today. So the reversal of all the work we'd put in to get inflation under control and get the economy growing again. And it's because of the policy choices of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. That's got to be laid directly at their door. For 6 months, they talked this economy down, and then they hit the economy with massive tax increases, when they'd said clearly in the lead up to the election that their manifesto was fully costed and fully funded, and proceeded to tax and spend to the tune of another £70 billion a year, much of that falling on businesses. And that's why the economy slowed, that's why unemployment is increased, and it's why, again, some inflation's gone up today. So all those policy choices must be laid directly at the door of the Labour government.
But Kevin, the government have a choice to do something about this. They see the warning, they see how there are going to be redundancies, they see how it's affecting inflation. They don't have to go ahead with this. They could say, we got that wrong, and admit they got it wrong, and the public could see they got it wrong, and maybe they'd get some forgiveness for it.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think the number one thing that Rachel Reeves could do is reverse her announcements at the autumn budget, particularly those massive tax increases. They don't come into effect until April. So some of the impacts on the economy have not come to pass yet, so that they could have an even worse effect on the economy. So she could decide to reverse those things in terms of those big tax increases. The other thing that's coming down the track from the government are some huge and very significant new red tape for businesses through the Employment Rights Bill, including giving trade unions unfettered access to every private sector workplace in the country in a way we've never seen before, even in the 1970s. That again will hit growth. So all these policies could be reversed. And if they reverse those policies, they're more likely to get growth, because growth is not stimulated by governments. Growth is produced by private sector businesses who employ people, who invest in expanding their enterprises. That's what we need to encourage, and that's exactly what the current government is currently discouraging.
Mr. Holland-Rake, we're almost out of time with you, but I just wanted to ask your thoughts on Donald Trump saying that elections must be held in Ukraine in order to bring an end to the war, and also speaking at the press conference last night, blaming, it would appear, Ukraine for all of this, saying you should never have started it, you could have made a deal. What did you make of those comments from President Trump?
Well, Ukraine is a sovereign nation. It's a democratic nation. It's for the people of the Ukraine to decide, what happens in its own country. And the government is in place to represent the people. And we have supported Ukraine from day one, as have most Western countries, including the US. We need to continue that support today. Of course, we'd all like to see an end to this war, but nevertheless, that support must continue. It must be 100% support for Ukraine until this war ends peacefully.
Would you support British troops on the ground in Ukraine, or British Typhoons being used in the skies over Ukraine?
Well, as I say, we're giving 100% support. We were the leading supporter of Ukraine right from the start. So I'm not averse to the potential for that, but we need to do that in collaboration with our allies. That's quite clear. We need to get all those different nations on side before we can commit to do that.
Kevin Hollerich, thanks for your time this morning. Good to listen to you.
Much.
Thank you very much indeed. Coming up to 25 to 8. We'll take a break. We've got the sport coming next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed southbound towards the M1 at the Elstow interchange at Bedford for emergency repairs after an accident yesterday. In Essex, the A13 is partly blocked westbound, where there's a problem at the Five Bells interchange at Basildon, slow towards and past there. In London, there are long northbound delays into the Blackwall Tunnel after an accident earlier. The queue's back to the A2 at the Sun in the Sands. There are delays of up to 40 minutes with some cancelled trains into and out of Victoria Station in London. Train service is suspended between Herne Hill and Blackfriars because of a faulty train. There's a reduced Heathrow Express train service because of a track fault. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking over half an hour in queues approaching the M25. And in Hampshire, the A303 is closed westbound at Andover, where overnight roadworks have overrun.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
75 years of Formula One. We're going to continue the celebrations. Paul, what have you got?
The Royal Automobile Club Grand Prix d'Europe, incorporating the British Grand Prix.
That sounds good.
That was the official title. They shortened it to the British Grand Prix because it's 50 years, or 75 years, since the World Championship. They did have British Grand Prix before that. Now, in the one which was 75 years ago, these are the main four, and they all drove for Alfa Romeo. Can you spot which one is the British driver? There was Nino Farina, there was Juan Manuel Fangio, there's Luigi Fagioli, or Reg Parnell. Can you tell which one is the British driver out of the four?
That's a tough one.
It might be our Reg.
It was Reg. Reg came third.
Oh,
Reg
God,
came
love him.
third. So it's the 75th anniversary of the Silverstone Grand Prix. And Jack Carson is actually, I believe, at Silverstone celebrating 75 years. And Jack obviously remembers at least the last 5. Is that right, Jack?
Yes, I feel like a kid in a sweet shop today. It is, I mean, what a place this is, the Silverstone Museum, where we are this morning. As you were mentioning, 75 years this year since the start of Formula One. That event last night showcasing all of the new cars, liveries, attended by thousands at the O2. But here at Silverstone, this is where Formula One really started. I mean, the whole place here, we are surrounded by history. Just take a look here. This is the 1992 Nigel Mansell Silverstone winning car here. What an absolute beauty that is. And I'm delighted to say we are joined this morning by Rob Janer, who's the head of learning and engagement at the Silverstone Museum. I mean, we're celebrating 75 years this year of Formula One, of Silverstone. That's going to be such a special occasion.
It is, and it all started here. It started literally just the other side of that wall here, the first Grand Prix here back on the 13th of May 1950. And here at the museum we're able to celebrate that with some epic cars. You've already mentioned Nigel Mansell's car. Next to it, David Coulthard's British Grand Prix winner from 2000. The Grand Prix was held at Easter. Can you imagine what the weather was like that year? You know, Silverstone weather and how things are. And then just next to that, we've got Jenson Button's car. Didn't win here at Silverstone, but it did win Jenson his World Championship, that Brawn car. Been featured in the Disney series just recently. An amazing collection here. We've got historic cars as well. And what we're really looking forward to is come May, we're really going to be celebrating the 75 years of the Formula One Drivers' World Championship with an extra special display of cars. We've got some new F1 cars coming in, which won't put these to shame, but they will go so well as a collection here. It's a privilege to work with them. And you say, kid in a sweet shop, I've heard that phrase so many times when you get to walk around and be amongst these amazing vehicles. It's a real privilege.
Rob, that's all we've got time for this morning, but we're going to be joining you a little bit later on to talk more Formula One, because there is so much to talk about here. It's absolutely fantastic. It's Formula One celebrating 75 years this year. It's going to be quite something here all year round at Silverstone.
You get all the best gigs, you do. If you're not outside a pub, you're out in the sports. Very good.
So, Paul, next time round, you have another guest.
Yes, Terry Gibson's going to join us. Terry Gibson, football expert when it comes to Spanish football, played for Manchester United, played for Spurs. You know, it kind of works, doesn't it? Don't you think? So anyway, we'll be talking about Man City versus Real Madrid, which is tonight in the Champions League.
Look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Now, do stay with us. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Winds from the north will bring a real chill to Greece and Turkey over the next few days. Meanwhile, plenty of sunny skies in Spain. There's that northerly wind making many of the Greek islands colder than the UK. Certainly chillier across parts of Croatia. Some sunny spells in Italy, along with a few showers. Fine and sunny weather for the Balearics and southern Spain, along with the Canaries. And the breeze here will be easing. But that cold wind will continue to blow across the Greek islands into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Lisa, you got in touch with me and you flagged this survey because you were concerned as a parent that your child had been given this to fill out.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter came home from school. She was very confused. She was asking why somebody would want to hurt themselves if they were feeling sad or worried about something. So that led to a conversation that we had, and I actually phoned the school and asked them to send me the survey, which with a lot of pushing, they eventually did send me the survey. And when I read through it, I was just completely shocked at the content. The survey says when I'm feeling worried that maybe I should try cutting or harming myself, because it's in the survey, so that must be an option. I've tried everything else, so why not try this?
It is astonishing that some of these are young children who are perhaps being introduced to these, these abuses for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of 17 different types of drugs, some of which I've actually never heard of myself. I mean, the wording on here is, have you ever got high from taking drugs? I mean...
And we know that some of these behaviours, self-harm, gender dysphoria, taking drugs, are psychologically contagious. Children do them because they see other children do them, or they find out about them from the internet or from surveys like this. So the idea that this is just information gathering and won't go any further than that is ridiculous. There was a similar survey in Scotland, I think, about 3 years ago, where children the same age, 11, 12, 13, were asked about their sex lives. How many times have you had sex in the last year? How did you have sex? Did you use contraception? Totally normalising underage sex. So the idea that children are just mini adults and we can confront them with all the same kind of ideas and dilemmas that adults have to face is just ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We welcome back Claire and Pat to go through the papers. And Pat, there's a lot of talk today about knife crime and restricting how you can buy and how you should register to buy dangerous knives.
Absolutely, Eamonn. I think the worrying thing here is that technically there are more rules for buying paracetamol than buying a knife. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's just unbelievable. And online retailers are obviously going to be made to have stronger checks, and then same thing for delivery. There's going to have to be a photo, not only taken... You know when you have something delivered and they take a photo of, like, the parcel, now they're going to take a photo of your face at the same time if it's a knife, which I think is definitely a good thing. But to think that, obviously, paracetamol is dangerous if you buy too many, but the fact that it's got less restrictions for buying a knife is crazy.
But do you think that these gangs, these young lads that are getting these knives, are they really going online to buy them? There are loads of knives available in corner shops, in other shops.
In a kitchen drawer.
In a kitchen drawer.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
I mean, come on. If I was buying a set of knives, I wouldn't go to the internet to buy them. I would buy them in a shop.
Yeah.
The thing is, great. This is
well, it has
great.
to. I think we have to do something.
But it's not getting to the root cause, is it? Which is why are young people, children, as you say, taking a knife in the first place? Why are they taking a knife outside of the house? And I mean, if you look at Axel Rudikabana and Val Callacane, I mean, that is failings of the PREVENT programme.
Yes.
And that is failings of the mental health service. I mean, it's nothing to do with them
accessing knives online.
Knives, yeah.
And then does it move to screwdrivers and stuff if you go to home base and carries on?
Claire, let's have a look at this story, shall we? This is a changing room row in Scotland. Tell us about what's on here.
Well, Firstly, I'm really surprised and shocked that this hasn't had more coverage in England and Wales.
So am I agree with you.
I've obviously am invested in it because of my Scottish roots and my family still living in Scotland, so I've been following it very carefully. This is a story of a nurse of 30 years unblemished experience, more or less, of a nurse called Sandy Peggy. She went in to change she worked for Fife Health Board. She went in to change her overalls, her uniform, and she was met with a trans doctor, Dr. Upton. Dr. Upton married a woman when he was a man. He still is a biological man. He has not got a gender recognition certificate. The GMC allowed him to change his name to be gender ID'd as a woman. So he went in to change and she said, look, I'm not happy about this. He took her to an industrial tribunal. He reported her and she has been suspended.
Well, you see, this is one of these we were talking about, should you criticise judges and rulings and all that sort of thing. Yes, of course you could.
Well, this is on the back again of Nicola Sturgeon, that wonderful woman who has crippled and killed Scotland. This is all down to her. This is her fault. She wanted this gender ID nonsense brought in. And do you know what? It was voted with the majority of the SNP MPs, most of the Labour in Scotland, 3 Conservatives and most of the Greens as well. They thought it would be OK if you wanted to identify as a furry, as a man, as a woman, when you biologically weren't and can't.
OK, well, so Dr. Upton seems to be, well, I don't know, but I presume has a penis.
Yes.
Right, so if Dr. Upton hadn't got a penis, would this be more acceptable to you?
Less acceptable even still, because it's not a case of what your genitals show that you are biologically. He still is a biological man. And even, do you know what? The other horrible thing about this, the NHS legal side wanted to actually make this case private because they knew, they were concerned what the backlash of this would be.
You say this, but
the judge ruled that it had to be done in an open court.
But this is going on and on because she's been called, Sandy Peggy's been called to a separate disciplinary hearing by the Health Board in Fife.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Where is... We spoke about the horrible case of that poor young soldier that took her life.
Yeah.
Again, it's women being crippled, women being silenced, and women made not safe because of men and because of the patriarchy. But I want to mention as well, the charities... Trans Alliance, Amnesty International, Stonewall, Rape Crisis Scotland, all wanted and supported this gender ID bill that John Swinney, in the 1st of May in 2024, said, look, I'm sorry, we're not going ahead with this. This is rubbish. Listen to the opinion of the people.
Folks, if you've got an opinion, have your say. Get in touch with us today.
Please do, because it's horrific.
Reflect that. Pat, meanwhile, you've got a great story.
I've got a lighter story in Scotland.
Yes, except this really would annoy me. If I was running in this race... 10-kilometre race, and this happened to me, which you're going to explain, I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be happy.
OK, so on Sunday, if you were in Glasgow and you did this race, good for you. You did a little more than 10K, because out of the 115 people who took part in the Castle Milk trail race, there was a prankster. And he basically buried one of the arrows showing the people which way to go, and they ended up, instead of doing 10 kilometres, did about 12.5. He sent them round a park on a detour. But the best thing is, at one stage, runners were approaching the finish line from 3 different directions.
I think that is brilliant.
I mean, imagine
Chaos.
raising your money, doing your charity run, and then being in a position where you think, hold on a minute, I don't remember this route, and now we're going an extra 2.5 kilometres. You would be knackered and annoyed, wouldn't you?
I'd be very annoyed if I was being timed, you know, when I was expecting to do better on my timings and my record and things like that. But there we go. Prankster, you call him, not what I would call him, but there we go.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, I went for the paper. They always call someone a prankster. Or if it's a DJ, it's DJ in a spin. Always.
Claire,
that's you, Pat.
No, that's you.
We mentioned this story earlier, Claire. I didn't know this. Cynthia Erivo, who is the Green Witch, Elphaba, in Wicked, is set to play Jesus.
Yes. In California, no less.
Wow.
Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar, written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it says it's always pushed the boundaries, right? I've seen it. It's... fine, OK?
So you now got Jesus Christ Superstar walks like a woman and wears a bra. Really?
Exactly. Do you remember that? That's what we used to sing. And Honestly, do we really need this? It smacks of it really does smack in the face. We've got Conclave, the Da Vinci Code, and now Wicked on a cross. Come on.
I do love Cynthia Erivo, though. She's
got an incredible voice.
She'd be very good in this.
She holds
what do you think of?
But she's not Jesus.
She's not Jesus Christ. What do you think of looking at her as Jesus Christ?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But Jesus was a man.
Yes.
Ellie. So we're not IDing Jesus as a woman, are we?
No.
Is that what we're doing?
I'm not disputing the fact that Jesus was a man. I just think Cynthia Erivo is a fantastic performer.
Well, I tell you what, Jesus could get a job in the Fife Hospital.
Well, exactly. Exactly. Performing miracles, eh?
Now, here's something that really gets on my threepenny's pat. Right. So last Saturday at 4:10 in the afternoon, I was driving around Wimbledon and I stopped to let someone cross the road, and this woman had her shopping with her.
I know what you're going to say.
She had her slippers on and her pyjamas as well. And I looked at her and I thought, have you even got out of those pyjamas, or are you now dressed for the evening? But the chances are you're going to be in those pyjamas all day.
So this was 4:10. It's probably the lighter evening. She's thinking to herself, oh, that's no problem, I'll stay in all day. So millions of us are slipping into our pyjamas, apparently, the minute they get home each day. So I'm not sure what time she was going in or out on the way. But either way, we like to be nice and cosy. We like to be comfy and cosy. What about you when you guys finish work? Straight into Jim James?
I don't like to be comfy and cosy. I associate that with being filthy and dirty and...
Lazy.
I do, lazy.
Yeah,
lazy.
not being dressed.
Lazy's
Honestly, this is one of my pet peeves when you go to the supermarket and you see people walking down the aisle in their pyjamas or their onesies or their dressing gowns, as I've seen recently.
But at home, 6 out of 10, as soon as we get home, are putting on our pyjamas. That's fine at home. But
do you do that?
Not in public. No, I don't, actually. I just stay in my jeans, actually, and then get told off from dirty jeans on the sofa.
I think 6 out of 10 people are actually working from home still, and I think that
maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, a lot of people
so they're
are
still in their pyjamas.
They're getting up and wearing them all day. That's not...
All right, you two. We're out of time. Thanks very much. Let's have a look at the weather with Tom Morgan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way through the next few days, turning much, much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west, 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in Derbyshire, the inside lanes closed southbound. There's a lorry with a puncture between junctions 25 and 24 near Nottingham and Derby, causing delays. On the M5 near Bristol, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 16 and 17 from Aztec West to the Cribbs Causeway, and it's slow towards there. On the M25 in Buckinghamshire, there's a lane closed where a car's broken down on the anti-clockwise entry slip road at junction 16 for the M40. Delays towards there from junction 17 at Maple Cross. There are delays of up to 40 minutes, with some cancelled southeastern rail services into and out of Victoria Station in London because of a faulty train. There are some cancelled trains into and out of Paddington Station in London because of a track fault. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour, and queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in Hampshire, the A303 is closed westbound at Andover. Overnight roadworks have overrun.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. The US and Russia seeking to push Ukraine out of the picture.
It comes as President Trump blames Ukraine for Russia's invasion, demanding they hold elections.
This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago.
Earlier we spoke to Shadow Secretary of State Kevin Hollenrich.
We've given 100% support. We were the leading supporter of Ukraine right from the start. So I'm not averse to the potential for that, but we need to do that in collaboration with our allies. That's quite clear. We need to get all those different nations on side before we can commit to do that.
Well, in a moment, we'll be speaking to political activist Sir Bill Browder, who is leading the campaign against Putin.
Inflation, an hour ago we heard, rises to 3%. That's its highest level in 10 months. The opposition accuses the government of failing to achieve growth.
We had a government that came in and said it wanted growth, and it proceeded to talk the whole economy down, then tax the living daylights out of it and expect the economy to grow.
Knife crime crackdown. The Home Office is to introduce stricter rules for buying blades online in a bid to protect young people.
That's why this is a major crackdown on online knife sales in order to take lethal weapons out of the hands of children.
Jonathan Reynolds is the latest cabinet minister to be accused of fabricating a CV. He said he's a solicitor. He's not.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day for what is now my constituency.
2 weeks, my show is coming out, which I'm so excited for, and also my business.
Another Markle makeover. The Duchess of Sussex takes to social media, revealing the plans for her new brand. But a Spanish town is considering taking legal action over the logo.
An inspiring story. Meet Army veteran Craig Woods, who aims to be the first triple amputee to sail the Pacific.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are very welcome always to our fashion shows.
And we're going to be hearing about the 90-year-old care home residents who are redefining London Fashion Week.
And in the sports, Celtic led Bayern Munich with just 40 seconds left on the clock until they then conceded and went out of the Champions League last night. 75th season of F1 was launched in London last night. Very glitzy event at the O2 with every team unveiling their new car. And Pep Guardiola says he lied when he gave Man City a 1% chance of beating Real Madrid tonight to stay in the Champions League. We all know they've got at least 7%.
It's turning much milder over the next few days, but also much wetter and windier for all of us. Find out more in the full forecast coming up.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Lots of you getting in touch this morning. Thank you for your company. Chantal is talking about F1. She says it's so much more than just cars circling around a track. The people, the personalities and the old rivalries are all part of the spectacle.
That's sport. That's sport all over.
She says, watch Drive to Survive. I believe that's on Netflix.
See, there you go. She's a Drive to Survive watcher, isn't she?
And you'll get caught up. And honestly, you will see it through a different lens, she says.
Well, that's why it's so popular. All of a sudden, it's taken off because of Netflix have done that. They've made it into almost like a soap opera.
I think I could get into the whole showbiz side of things.
I think you could as well.
I probably quite enjoy that.
I think you'd enjoy the paddock.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Champagne.
Oh, yeah. Oh, if there's champagne, I'm there, as you really well know.
There's a big pole coming out of your head in a minute.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you very much.
That's better. OK, very good. The Home Office is to introduce stricter rules for retailers selling knives and tougher penalties for those failing to enforce.
Well, this is part of the government's aim to increase the protection of young people from knife crime following tragedies after unlicensed sales of the weapons. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has outlined their plans.
There have to be checks all the way along the way. That includes the new double age verification checks, also checks on deliveries so you don't just get doorstep drops. And we're setting up a new policing unit to be able to pursue these online knife sales that are breaking the law.
Also this morning we can report a blow for the government. Inflation rising from 2.5% to 3%. That is the highest level in 10 months.
Well, we're joined now by GB News national reporter Adam Cherry. Good to see you this morning, Adam. And should we start with those inflation figures? It's not what a government going for growth wants to see.
No, pretty gloomy reading for the Chancellor this morning. We were expecting a slight rise from 2.5% to 2.8%. 3% is beyond that. And of course, it's also before we've even felt the pinch of rising energy bills as expected and as trailed by the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband. Energy bills expected to rise by up to £100 a year, £9 a month over the next 3 months. And before we felt the pinch of the national insurance hike to employers, which is the tax paid by employers on people's wages. That hasn't been introduced yet either. So in a sense, the worst is yet to come. And we also have to ask the question, what does the Bank of England do? They've only just cut interest rates in the last month or so, but now facing stagflation. The economy only grew by 0.1%, and now inflation is higher than expected. So their plan to cut interest rates gradually, as the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey said, is now in question. Stagflation is a real problem here. What do they do? What does the Chancellor do? It's all a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Tell us about this crackdown of online sale of knives that we're hearing about this morning.
Yeah, so the argument is it's easier to buy paracetamol than it is to buy knives online, and retailers and online markets will have a greater responsibility to flag any suspicious activity if there's bulk buying of knives, anything that would raise eyebrows, so to speak. It's been called Ronan's Law, which is in relation to a young boy who was stabbed in a of mistaken identity in 2022 by teenagers with knives, sort of these ninja knives, these enormous machetes, and there are questions over why are these allowed to be sold so easily without proper checks. This is trying to crack down on that. Obviously, the question of whether this will really impact violence on the streets, it's not particularly difficult to acquire a knife. There's plenty in the kitchen drawer already. But this is, I suppose, a first step from the Home Office. You just heard from the Home Secretary there saying that they're taking these preliminary steps to try and crack down on violence, particularly among teenagers who are able to access these online without any guardrails.
Hey, Adam Cherry there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed. Now, British troops could be used to keep the peace in Ukraine as the government explores options to provide troops or Typhoon jets to help the country.
President Trump's having a lot to say about this. What exactly is he going to say? We've now got a guest to talk about all of this, and that is Bill Browder. And obviously things moving at quite a pace, Bill, keeping you well and truly occupied. What do you think about what you're seeing?
Well, what I'm seeing is quite disturbing and unexpected. Donald Trump said he was going to end the war in 24 hours when he was elected. It's taken longer than that, but what the fact is he's holding negotiations with just Putin and just Russia and excluding Ukraine from these discussions, and Ukraine is the other warring party. And each new statement, each new development suggests that his intention is to throw Ukraine under the bus. And for all of those of us who have been rooting for Ukraine since the beginning and trying
Bill,
to stop.
are these not organisational talks? Are these not just talks about the logistics of what is going to happen?
Well, for example, yesterday in a press conference, Trump blamed Zelensky for the war. He went so far as to say he could have stopped this at any point, and he didn't, as if somehow the defender, the victim, is somehow responsible. And I mean, there's just been a howl of outrage from every quarter. And I should point out that this is not a partisan statement I'm making. I was just in the Munich Security Conference, and I was meeting with Democrats and Republicans from the House of Representatives and the Senate, and everybody agrees that Putin is the criminal, he's the aggressor, and Zelensky and Ukraine are the victims and trying to defend themselves. There's like no other way to characterize it, and it's.
Bill, I want to put something to you. When it comes to talks, it's about seeing things from every direction. And if we only see this from a Western way, we're not going to achieve anything. Surely seeing things through Putin's eyes is not the same as condoning Putin.
Well, that's an optimistic way of putting it out there. I think that more likely what you have is a situation where the American government, I should say the Trump administration, has already basically conceded on some of the most important points that Ukraine.
Why do you think that is, Bill? Why do you think that is? I mean, when I was in Russia about 7 years ago, Trump was like God. They loved him. They adored him. I'm talking about the oligarchs.
Right. And so I guess why do I say that? Because if you look at all the main negotiating points that are on the table, the first is where Ukraine should be part of NATO, and they pre-announced that Ukraine wasn't going to be part of NATO. Should Ukraine get any of its territory back? They said no, they shouldn't. They're now basically excluding Ukraine from the negotiations. I mean, this is just objective stuff. Again, this is not a partisan discussion. This is just plain, the light of day facts of what's going on here.
But facts of what's going on, Bill, as well. Again, sorry, I'm not being apologetic for Russia and the position they find themselves in, but turn the clock back 35 years or so. Russian influence extended as far as Germany. Now, it doesn't. It is in retreat. I mean, you can see, my goodness me, you lived there, you know so much of what's going on, you know things from the inside. But their influence and their power has so decreased.
Well, I mean, that's and therefore they should now go on an imperialistic mission and take over neighboring countries. I mean, that is, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, all those people were rounded up and sent to die in Siberia, and they eventually became independent after the fall of the Soviet Union. I don't think that anyone could argue that it's a good thing for Russia to be sort of taking over neighboring countries. It just I don't think that there's nobody out there that I know that think that's a good thing other than Vladimir Putin and his cronies.
What did you make of Donald Trump saying yesterday that Ukraine must hold elections in order to bring an end to the war, pointing to what he says is Mr. Zelensky's dropping favourability in the polls?
Well, he then pulled out of or made up out of whole cloth that Zelensky has a 4% approval rating. His approval rating is 52%, which is higher than our current government's here right now. I think the majority of the Ukrainians don't think that in the middle of a war you can hold an election. And for that matter, if Trump is making that insistence, why doesn't he make the insistence that Putin holds a real election? He's been a dictator for life.
Yeah, and obviously the concern is that Russia would use that ballot, if it were to happen, to oust Zelensky and put in a pro-Putin candidate who would obviously be favourable to this deal that's on the table.
Well, I mean, the reason why Putin doesn't like Zelensky is because Zelensky has been a brave man standing up to Russia and doing everything he can to defend his country. And of course they're mad at him, the same way that they were mad, that the Russians were mad at Mikhail Saakashvili, who is the president of Georgia, who stood up to Russia. And now Saakashvili is rotting away in a prison, having lost a third of his body weight and looking like a concentration camp victim. Putin's got a really long, he's got a lot of longevity, and so he can he can wait it out and then destroy his enemies and then make a point so that anyone else who's thinking about standing up to him say, look at what we did to Saakashvili, look what we did to Zelensky. That's Putin's operating procedure.
Bill, I respect everything you say, and I know you've lived a life and you've experienced so much there in Russia. But what I suppose I'm saying to you is, what's in it for Putin? We have to give him something, whether we like it or not. How far can we go and say, OK, you can have this? Is it dethroning Zelensky? Is it giving him more territory that belongs to Ukraine? What is it? What do you think it is he actually wants? What would he settle for?
Well, why should we be settling with him? I mean, this sounds very much like Neville Chamberlain and peace in our time. Putin was the aggressor. He started this war. And he's not been winning this war. And by any objective measure, he's lost 850,000 troops. He's lost hundreds of billions of dollars. His economy is hanging by a thread. They've got 23% interest rates there. It's an unbelievable mess that he's gotten himself into. Why should we be negotiating and appeasing a terrorist? He's a terrorist.
Bill, if you were to ask Donald Trump that question, what would he say? What is this at the end of the day? Is this business? Is this American control? What is it?
Well, I mean, just based on the actions of his administration so far, I don't think he has an answer to that question. They're different people in his administration are making different statements. Some of the people are making different statements from day to day. All those statements are different from what the people in the Republican Party, the Congress, are saying. I think it's just a shambolic mess. He doesn't have a strategy. He's making it up as he goes along. He has one thing which he said, which is a campaign promise, which is that he wanted to end the war in 24 hours. And these guys are behaving like complete, absolute amateurs when it comes to actually doing something about that.
Bill, fascinating to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed. Bill Browder says it's an absolute mess. They're making it up as they go along. Have your say today as to what you think. Bill, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Now let's get a check on your weather with Tom Morgan.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way through the next few days, turning much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good one for you now, the Great British Giveaway.
Yes, if you want to be one of 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here are all of the details that you need.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
A very interesting story for you coming up next. Just because you're old doesn't mean to say you're not interested in fashion. And our take on this is
90-year-old care home residents who are embracing London Fashion Week. We're going to tell you a bit more about that next.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, a new study has called calorie-labelled menus in restaurants a cause for concern for those who suffer from eating disorders.
It has indeed. The review found that people with restrictive eating disorders modified their behaviour when presented with the labelled menus and opted for lower-calorie dishes. Well, joining us now is content creator Adelaide Saywell. Adelaide, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, I know that you yourself have struggled with eating disorders over the years, and that is what's led you to kind of advocate using your online platform to try and help other people who might be struggling. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about your story first of all?
Yeah, so I've had an eating disorder since I was younger, and it's kind of flip-flopped between anorexia, bulimia and binge eating disorder. And it was in 2020 that I was officially diagnosed with anorexia, and I started my recovery on the 1st of May of that year. Recovery was really, really difficult. It took me, I'd say, at least a year or two before I really went into recovery for the right reasons. I was kind of in like a quasi-recovery where you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And because it was during 2020, it was obviously during COVID, so I didn't have as much support as I could have had, and I had to have therapy, but I had to have it like over Zoom, so they wasn't able to really like talk me through and see me and things like that, which made it really difficult, and not allowed visitors. So it was quite isolating and lonely, which made it even more difficult. And things ended up getting a little bit worse before they started to get better.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, we do want to tell you that tomorrow's a big date in the fashion calendar because
London Fashion Week kicks off tomorrow, and 4 care home residents with dementia have proven that fashion isn't just a young person's game.
No, we're going to talk about Shirley, about Peggy, Yvonne Caldwell and Yvonne Ryder partnered with the UK's #1 free care finder, Lottie, to put on their own fashion show. And this is all happening in Poole at Eagles Mount Care Home.
Yes, the women enjoyed a pamper session in the home's beauty salon. That sounds good, doesn't it? Before styling their own outfits and then walking the red carpet, proving that even when you're 90 years old, age is no barrier to self-expression and creativity.
Now, joining us here in the studio, we've got Hannah Karam and Alison Williams, and they've got jobs within the care home. But your main job is to make these ladies feel good. And actually, I would say you're learning a lot from them.
Yeah, definitely. We learn something from them. They've had such rich lives. They've got so much to teach us and share with us.
Including fashion.
Including fashion.
What would you say to people who would say, yeah, but they're old and they don't know, and as you get older, you don't care enough about fashion, and what would you say?
They definitely do. They definitely do. They're stylish people. Just because in the care home, they don't lose that sense of identity.
So, Alison, you've got a great job, haven't you? Because you're the wellbeing lead, so you're in charge of all the activities.
Yeah.
How did you come up with this idea for a fashion show and a photo shoot?
So Lottie were online and we reached out and we collaborated with them because we thought anything that's fun and a bit wacky, it's straight up our street at Eagles.
Yeah, but it's not, Hannah, it's not just fun and a bit wacky. There's a real good purpose to this, and I think from our point of view, we quite liked the idea when we heard about it, what you were doing, and that the women were taking part. This reminds me of my mum. My mum died when she was 96, and her main big thing was, her main complaint always was, you can get nothing in Marks and Spencer's nowadays. There's nothing there. They're changing it. It's only for young people. There's nothing for my age anymore, anything like that.
Yeah, we're just, our main mission at Lottie is to kind of challenge the misconceptions of elderly care. And so a campaign like this, we love to work with our partners and their residents. So all of those amazing women at Eagles Mount were just the perfect pairing for something around Fashion Week. And they just tell the story for us, really. Yeah.
And I reckon you're putting that story out there, hoping that people who are around older, I don't know if men are involved in this.
Yeah, men too.
Yeah, men and women who've lived through this and who've had different styles, that you'll encourage them to maybe join in and celebrate as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely getting involved and just realising that the misconceptions of care just aren't the case, and debunking those stereotypes and showcasing those wonderful women we'll just hopefully communicate that.
And, you know, when you're close with someone with dementia, and my granddad had dementia, reminiscing is a really good way to bring them back to you, isn't it?
It is. That's
powerful.
to them.
And fashion is probably a really good way of helping them to reminisce.
Yeah, it definitely is, because it brought back on the day so many memories. And the ladies were from 4 different homes.
Yeah.
But they sat and had their afternoon tea together and just chatted for the whole afternoon.
Now, the thing is, will they... London Fashion Week starts tomorrow. Will the ladies who took part, some of them suffer from dementia, and when you show them the pictures of all that you did and whatever it is, will this be a surprise to them, do you think?
It may be. It may be, but we've been talking about it. We've got the buzz about it, so we keep it going all the time. So they are expecting this to happen, and they're looking forward to seeing it all online.
Hannah, I love there's some rules, timeless fashion rules. Never judge fashion choices. It's up to the person who wears the clothes. And that was a 93-year-old Shirley Cousins that had that bit of information. Choose outfits that you feel good in, not what everyone else is wearing. 86-year-old Yvonne Ryder. And wear clothes that make you feel free. That is from a 96-year-old former dancer, Peggy Howe. That's an interesting one. Clothes that make you feel free.
Yeah, I think they just give some of the best wisdom, don't they? The things that they come out with, there's a lot to live by, and yeah, you know them so well, don't you, Ellie?
It's about making your own choice, being yourself. Don't conform. That's the general thing that was coming across. They're individuals and they're free to make their own choices.
Whose idea was all of this? Because, you know, when we talk about fashion on the show and whatever it is, it's always freaky, way out, unrelatable to and whatever. And now you're making this all very relatable.
Yeah, I think it's looking at the residents in our partner homes. As Ali said, they all have a story, and each of these ladies have a connection to fashion from their life, you know, in their 20s and 30s, and being able to showcase those stories and give them the opportunity to share them around London Fashion Week. It just made a lot of sense for us.
Good luck with what you're doing. Really admire what you're doing. And I'm not far away from being in your home, so take their names down and get
You'll love us.
I'd love to come down and see you.
We'd love to see you down there. Our residents would love it.
Yeah. They would. Well, that would be really, really nice.
They would love that.
Keep that floor open, and lovely to have you two here.
Thank you.
Today.
And thank you very much for everything you're doing as well. It looks like the women are just having such a fabulous time with you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank
if
you
you
very much.
or a loved one are struggling with dementia, and for more support, you can visit lottie.org to find the UK's best care homes.
Right, we'll take a break. And then we've got former footballer Terry Gibson to talk about tonight's battle for Manchester City against Real Madrid. Terry's now based in Spain, and he'll be giving us the lowdown on that after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M621 in West Yorkshire, the outside lanes closed westbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from the A61 Hunslet distributor to Leeds city centre, causing queues. On the M1 in Derbyshire, there are southbound queues after traffic was stopped when a lorry got a puncture between junctions 25 and 24 near Nottingham and Derby. There are delays of up to half an hour with some cancelled southeastern rail services into and out of Victoria Station in London because of a faulty train. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes and queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. On the M23 in Surrey, there's a lane closed on the northbound exit to the anti-clockwise M25 where someone's broken down, causing roughly 2 miles of queues. And in Devon on the A38, there's a lane closed westbound for a car overturn between Rangerton Cross and Ivy Bridge, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's at the Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Guests galore on the programme today. Paul has got another one to introduce you to.
I do, because Manchester City play Real Madrid tonight. 3-2 it is. Man City were 2-1 up last week and then end up conceding late, which they seem to be doing a lot. So now it's the second leg to get into the last 16 of the Champions League. And Pep Guardiola has said 1% chance of getting through. He's yanking our chain, isn't he? Surely. But it's Real Madrid at the Bernabeu tonight. Spanish football expert, and we especially love him because he played for your club and he played for my club.
Indeed.
Terry Gibson.
Hello,
Morning.
Terry. Morning.
Hey, Terry.
Good morning, everybody.
Terry, great to see it. So, Real Madrid, I mean, surely we'd expect them to go through tonight, wouldn't we? What do you think?
Well, it's become a modern-day classic, isn't it, in the Champions League? They've played each other so many times over the years, and I'm slightly wary. Real Madrid do have the advantage, but I'm slightly wary of their attitude. Why Pep Guardiola said they've only 1% chance of going through, nobody's believing that. Ancelotti definitely isn't, because he said it's not 99% in our favour that we go through this tie. But I heard an interview yesterday with Valverde that they're more comfortable than ever playing against Manchester City this season, which is slightly worrying because, you know, City have at the upper hand. They had the 5-1 thrashing in the semi-final of the year. They won the treble.
Yep.
Real Madrid needed a dramatic comeback in the Bernabeu a couple of 3 years ago to go through in dramatic circumstances. And last year, on penalties, Real Madrid, they didn't play like Real Madrid in the leg at the Etihad when they set everybody back behind the ball, Jude Bellingham up front. So it's been a struggle for Real Madrid. So Fede Valverde is an awesome footballer, awesome personality. Every team needs a Fede Valverde. So I was slightly surprised yesterday to hear him feeling as confident as he was. So I think Real Madrid do have to be wary still, because we're still unsure as to what Manchester City are going to turn up.
Yeah, and Celtic last night, Paul and I were talking about this earlier. I mean, great performance. Who would have thought they could have gone to Munich last night? And, you know, they nearly did it.
Nearly.
Exactly. That just goes to show in this competition at the moment, this is all new. I mean, these two teams, City and Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, they didn't expect to be playing in the playoffs. And then when Bayern Munich face Celtic, they probably think this is going to be comfortable, especially when they won their away leg. But last night, Celtic took them all away. So City will be trying to do exactly the same tonight. Real Madrid will be slightly stronger in the second leg. Antonio Rudiger is back, and that's been a feature of the clashes between Real Madrid and Manchester City in recent seasons. The physical battle between him and Erling Haaland. When he didn't play in the first leg, Haaland gets his first goals ever against Real Madrid. So I think that's going to make Real Madrid slightly stronger tonight.
So you're saying, Terry, and that's it, nobody expected that these two would be playing at this point because they would expect to have qualified straight away. But tell me about, what do you know about this Jude Bellingham business? We talked about this, didn't we, just the other day, about the swearing at the referee. Now, we've got to be careful here, but it involves the difference between going, you, or off. So there was a red card. He could be banned for a long time. And then we hear that Real Madrid are saying they may even pull out of La Liga over this.
It's Real Madrid, it's Jude Bellingham, it's going to be dramatic. It's massive news here in La Liga. And over the weekend, it was a dreadful performance in terms of refereeing. We had 6 sendings off, 7 penalties, most of them controversial. One of those, of course, was Jude Bellingham. Yeah. We also had Mason Greenwood last year, who had a ban overturned after a red card because he used the term sake. And that was it. It was a kind of, that ban got overturned because I think as soon as the referee hears that particular word, the F word, they go for the red card. It wasn't a massive confrontation between Jude Bellingham and the referee at the weekend. It didn't look like a player that was remonstrating too fiercely. But I think the referee, there was a slight misunderstanding because the word was used. It wasn't at him. It wasn't directed towards him. They think it's an automatic red card when you use that word here in La Liga. So the hearing is this afternoon. So it will be interesting. It ranges from he'll get no ban to a 12-match ban. Again, I'll say it's dramatic because it's Real Madrid and, of course, it's Jude Bellingham.
So what happens? What happens tonight? What do you think?
I think it's going to be very close. I think a Real Madrid 2-1 victory, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter, a lot more difficult than they think and the press in Spain think.
Terry, we've got another cracker of a game in the Premier League tonight. Villa playing Liverpool. Do you think the title's nailed on for Liverpool?
Oh, no, far from it. I don't think there's too many challenges. There is only the one challenger, isn't there, in Arsenal. I think Nottingham Forest have slipped away now and Chelsea's form's deteriorated, and I think the battle for top 4 is interesting, but it's in Liverpool's hands, but I don't think it's done yet. They need a lot more points to make sure, but they're in pole position. But this is going to be a tough game tonight. Aston Villa under Unai Emery at Villa Park. It's going to be a tough fixture. Arsenal knows that. Liverpool players know that. This is key to... I mean, if the gap gets narrower, if they don't maintain this distance, then it gives Arsenal a little bit of confidence that they can do it. But Arsenal have their own problems as well without having a centre forward for pretty much the rest of the season.
Well, there we go. You know, just got to be careful then. So if there's a Spanish referee, just don't swear in front of a Spanish referee.
I hate swearing.
I know you do. Eamonn, see, the thing is, both me and Terry, we knew we had to be careful with the words, not for the audience, just because it upsets Eamonn so much. So you'd never hear a curse word.
We'll love you and leave you. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Terry. Enjoy the game.
Well... What we're going to talk about? I forgot. I had something to talk to you about now. I've forgotten what it was.
Was it? Something? Something to do with football? Anything to do with F1?
Formula 1.
About Formula 1?
Yeah.
About Formula 1, the launch of F1?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to an F1?
You know what? I have, quite a long time ago. But the thing is, with F1 now...
We should go in the summer.
Do you think so?
Aye, it would be a lovely day out.
Yeah, and then Ellie can come along for the champagne.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
75th anniversary of F1. They launched it yesterday at the O2. Everybody was there. They had all the cars there. All the drivers were there. And, I mean, look at this. I mean, talk about showbiz. It's just gone into the stratosphere now as far as the showbiz launches go. And there it goes. A couple of weeks to go. And that's when it all starts.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much for that.
Stay with us. Still to come, we're going through the papers with Pat Sharp and Claire Muldoon. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, we don't blame you because it's very cold outside. Here's the European holiday weather forecast.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Winds from the north will bring a real chill to Greece and Turkey over the next few days. Meanwhile, plenty of sunny skies in Spain. There's that northerly wind making many of the Greek islands colder than the UK. Certainly chillier across parts of Croatia. Some sunny spells in Italy, along with a few showers. Fine and sunny weather for the Balearics and southern Spain, along with the Canaries. And the breeze here will be easing. But that cold wind will continue to blow across the Greek islands into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as a upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025, what can we expect fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning and welcome to Claire Muldoon and Pat Sharp. And they've got the papers here in front of them. And on the front page of The Sun today, we feature an emblem, Claire, associated with the Duchess of Sussex. And I think it's related to Mallorca, is it?
Well, we've also got a logo on the front page of The Sun relating to Pereiras, which is in Mallorca, and the Mallorcans are not happy.
Now, all I'm going to say about this is a bit of a coincidence. You see, Pat, if I was sitting down to design something, I think I would have had to have seen the Mallorca thing first to think of the black and white logo. It's too alike, come on.
Well, yes, it would certainly put up a bit of a...
Would that just come out of your head to put a palm tree, not any tree, a palm tree, and then 2, whatever they are, there, doves or whatever the heck they are there? Claire, I just think it's very alike.
No, well, of course they're very alike, but the reason that this, for want of a better word, I'm sorry, but I do think that Meghan is a bit of a grifter. She says that these birds represent the birds that Harry saw, her husband, in a dream, representing...
Yeah, but they would be different birds he would have seen.
I'm a bit worried you said Meghan's a grifter. When I was a kid, that was a bicycle.
Oh, gosh, yes. Remember those?
Yeah. There was a chopper, then there was a grifter.
Yeah. Well, no, I think she is. But then, how much more does she have to do in terms of a jam? A cringy video for new brand. Mallorcans are saying, don't use our logo. As ever, she says it's the font of love, the language of love.
Thing is, though, Claire, she's got to make money, hasn't she? I mean, she's not part of the royal family. She's not working as a senior member of the royal family. She needs to create a business.
That doesn't mean you steal someone else's idea.
And it doesn't mean you cook jam in your kitchen. This is a woman that's all for diversity, for heaven's sake. Have you seen the trailer for her Netflix show? It's very, very, very upper middle class. Her kitchen is beautiful, not very diverse at all. She can't seem to include in her recipes a repertoire of her heritage.
What's her show about? What is it?
Cooking and lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle
I mean, come on. Who on earth would want to mirror what she does anyway?
Her lifestyle would be different than anybody else's lifestyle.
Exactly. So we were talking earlier about the likes of Jonathan Reynolds lying on his CV. Look at her CV, a 2-bit actress on Suits. Come on, what's she doing now? Does she think she's Delia Smith or something? Jamie Oliver?
I think she's still an actress.
I think she's acting the part, isn't she?
Yeah.
Or as my gran used to say, acting the goat.
Let us know your views.
Yeah, let us know your views on that one. Pat, let's have a look at this story in the Daily Star. Jen said they go with the flow, don't they? They like a cruise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that cruises should be labelled. It says here in the papers that they're for retirees. Cruises, I mean, have you been on a cruise, Eamonn?
Yes, I've been on one this year.
Okay.
Tell me this, do you work on cruises?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Geek Talk. I've been on there with the Human League and ABC, and we played loads of gigs. And, you know, if this boat's a rocking...
Well, they're telling me that you don't have to tell me. I didn't realise. So I'm on this cruise ship, and we go around, and then the subject arises. People said, oh, they're a pineapple company, or a couple. Right. I said, what's a pineapple couple? So they put a pineapple sticker on their cabin door. And you know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't. I swear I don't.
Well, a pineapple is wife swapping.
I definitely don't.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah.
Why is that pineapple?
And the crew and the things were telling us that this is a regular thing. There are swapping cruises that go on, and you take a sticker and you put a pineapple on your door.
Oh, why? That's just
because then that's the signal that they're open for it. They're up for it.
Why a pineapple?
I don't know. don't know what that is, but they're pineapple.
Well, the youngsters are up for going on a cruise, whether they get a pineapple on their door or not. They're swapping Ibiza and party islands and Dubai and stuff for just being on a cruise ship with the older people. So,
Does it say why, Pat?
Excuse me, why are we so horrified that young people are mixing with old people? Why are we sort of saying, oh, you'll never guess, the young people are there and there's normally old people?
Well, no, but I think I would associate
a cruise with older people.
With older people, because it's very relaxed, very chill.
True.
Well, it used
but it's
to
not
be
with the party ones that I've been doing. It's literally a 3-day floating festival, bands, and just crazy fun, but no pineapple.
Think of anything worse. I really couldn't.
You say no pineapples, you don't know.
I've been around every
door.
Eamonn, I go around before my gig, I check every door. If there's pineapple, they're out, they're off.
Right.
Walk the plank.
All right.
Thank you.
But the youngsters are going on cruises.
See, I feel like maybe you don't feel this way on a cruise, but I feel trapped. I couldn't get off because I'm in the middle of the ocean. Well, I think not get that at all.
Yeah, I do.
There's
I do
enough
know what
to
you
do
mean.
They're so big. The ships are so big. You do not think...
You wouldn't necessarily bump into any of us on the cruise.
Really?
No, unless I stuck a pineapple on my door.
Be bumping into something else.
Yeah.
It's a floating city. You would love it.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't.
And you're that generation, so you'll be straight in.
Maybe one day, maybe. Claire, let's have a look at Mickey Mouse courses or a donkey degree.
This is hilarious. This is Exeter University, which is one of the top Russells, actually. Mickey Mouse course? No, it's a donkey degree. Donkeys on the big screen will be the focus of a new course for film students. The University of Exeter will examine the roles in movies as diverse as The Banshees of Inisherin.
Great film.
Shrek. Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah.
What will donkey be identified in that one, I wonder? And EO, whatever EO is. Undergraduates will spend time at the Donkey Sanctuary's main site in Sidmouth. They'll be observing and recording staff interactions with the animals. How on earth can this be part of a degree?
I totally disagree with you, Claire. I think it's very much part of the degree. When you look at westerns like Two Mules for Sister Sarah, you know, Clint Eastwood film.
Yeah.
You know, they're very, very diverse and they change. I mean, whether you're watching Jesus from Nazareth or Shrek or Two Mules for Sister Sarah, whatever, each very, very difficult. And it changes a person's outlook and perception of things by the donkey. The donkey is a very pacifying creature. And I look at it on Instagram and I get sent quite a lot of donkey films and things. Very, very loving creature.
Do you know they've got a cross on their back?
Do they?
They actually do, yeah. They've got a sign of a cross on the donkey's back.
Really?
Yeah. So it's an icon, really. Well, it's not really an icon, but for the Catholic Church of strength.
Well, I tell you what, I think they're such abused animals.
They are very much
and you
abused,
think,
especially on the beaches now.
And yet they are so loving. They are so... Look at that girl there with that.
Pat, would you like to study donkeys?
I don't know if I would like to study them, but I do feel sad every time I see one all alone in a field.
Yeah.
But why?
You're on a train going by.
But look, AI has come on so much, right? Why do they need to study the interaction of humans with these donkeys, with the donkey? Surely you would know. It's an animal, just like a horse is. Are you saying the Westerns are different
I think
because
what
of
they're
the
maybe
horses?
trying to do is to show the science between how the humans interact with this sort of thing and how they were used, how they're used in Jesus of Nazareth, and then the changing Shrek. It's a comical creature, whatever it is. Yeah. But anyway, is what it is. But I don't know how I would feel like if I was to be a future politician and say, well, I've got a degree in donkeyism.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Would you put that on your CV?
Well, you'd lie then.
You would lie then.
You'd lie then, yeah.
Aww.
Pat, let's talk about these werewolf dog chews from China.
Yeah, from donkeys to dogs. A pup, or a dog of any kind, if it has these dog chews, which the paper hasn't reported exactly what they are, so we did a little Google. And
they're full of chemicals, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You've got to be really careful. Apparently, they're called Barku products. I'm not sure if that's a pun on bark, but BARKOO. They're the ones that have been warned off against. They can turn your dog into a howling werewolf.
Oh.
The imported treats are feared to have been contaminated with chemicals, as you say, Eamonn. And so far, a number of dogs have died and many affected as well. Really sad. Yeah, this is worrying. I mean, I think when we buy anything for our dog, we're always quite careful as to its, origin, I think.
Would you buy raw food for your dog?
Our dog's on raw food diet.
Yeah.
They recommend it really good. Yeah, always been on, never had anything else, apart from the odd bit of chicken from us.
What about Maggie? Is you quite
She's on a
strict with
dry
that?
food diet.
Is she?
Yeah, mostly.
The kibble.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK.
There we go.
Got to be so careful.
Now,
You?
tell us about what irritates you if you share a house, a room, a flat with someone. Feeling sore on chores is in the Daily Star. What do you think, Claire?
Well, I'm so on this. I've now got 2 daughters back at home for different reasons. And, it's just driving me up the wall. You forget when you live on your own how messy.
Yeah.
And, honestly, they have to have things. My mother, if she's watching this, will die with laughter with the irony, because she used to say I used to come in and sweep the room with a glance, and that was all I would do because I didn't know what a brush was.
Yeah.
But honestly, hair, blocked sinks, this, that, and the next thing. It's just
things lying on the floor,
oh,
things not
my
picked
goodness
up.
me.
Wet towels.
Wet towels. It's even mentioned here. The dishwasher, I didn't know it was on. Well, can you just check? I put a washing... No, I didn't know the washing machine was on. The washing's still in. Just use your eyes, will you, please?
I was brushing my teeth. I dropped my toothbrush and I couldn't lift it up again. So there we are. My breath smells today. That's sort of why.
Lovely.
Nice one to think about. Pat and Claire, lovely having you both today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Very much indeed.
To you two.
Thank you. And you know what they said? Those two were no good. They were saying as a producer, I've seen them. They're fine.
Stop.
Average.
Great what they're doing. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, let's get a check on the weather, shall we, with Tom, because it's pretty nippy outside this morning.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way for the next few days, turning much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to dry conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in South Wales on the A470. It's taking around half an hour in southbound delays from Pontypridd to junction 32 of the M4 at the Corriton interchange. In Essex, the B1008 Chelmsford Road is blocked each way by an accident off the A120 near Great Dunmow, causing queues. There are delays of up to 20 minutes to South Eastern rail services into and out of Victoria Station in London, thanks to a faulty train earlier. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. On the M23 in Surrey, there's a lane closed on the northbound exit at junction 8 for the anti-clockwise M25, where someone's broken down, causing roughly 2 miles of queues. And in Devon on the A38, there's a lane closed westbound where a car's overturned between Rangerton Cross and Ivy Bridge, causing queues towards Plymouth. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Are the US and Russia seeking to push Ukraine out of the picture?
Human rights activist Bill Browder has lashed out at the decision.
Well, why should we be settling with him? I mean, this sounds very much, like Neville Chamberlain and peace in our time. Putin was the aggressor. He started this war, and he's not been winning this war.
Well, it comes as President Trump blames Ukraine for Russia's invasion, demanding they hold elections.
This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago.
We also got the view of Kevin Hollinrake, Shadow Secretary of State.
We're giving 100% support. We were the leading supporter of Ukraine right from the start. So I'm not averse to the potential for that, but we need to do that in collaboration with our allies. That's quite clear. We need to get all those different nations on side before we can commit to do that.
Well, inflation rises to 3%, reaching its highest level in 10 months. The opposition accuses the government of failing to achieve growth.
We had a government that came in and said it wanted growth, and it proceeded to talk the whole economy down, then tax the living daylights out of it and expect the economy to grow.
Knife crime crackdown. The Home Office has to introduce stricter rules for buying blades online.
That's why this is a major crackdown on online knife sales in order to take lethal weapons out of the hands of children.
The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, is the latest cabinet member to be accused of fabricating his CV, claiming he's a solicitor despite never qualifying.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day from what is now my constituency.
And stand by to meet Craig Woods. Craig is an Army veteran, and he aims to be the first triple amputee to sail the Pacific. Talking to him very shortly. Stay tuned.
It's turning much milder over the next few days, but also much wetter and windier for all of us. Find out more in the full forecast coming up.
On this Wednesday morning, a very good morning to you. Nice to have you on board. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, good morning.
I'm Ellie.
In case you did pick that up, she's Ellie, I'm Eamonn.
Yeah, and very good morning. And this is GB News Breakfast.
Yeah, very good. The Home Office is to introduce stricter rules for retailers selling knives and tougher penalties for those failing to enforce those rules.
Well, this is part of the government's aim to increase the protection of young people from knife crime following tragedies after unlicensed sales of weapons. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has outlined their plans.
There have to be checks all the way along the way. That includes the new double age verification checks, also checks on deliveries so you don't just get doorstep drops. And we're setting up a new policing unit to be able to pursue these online knife sales that are breaking the law.
Elsewhere, a blow for the government. Inflation has risen to 3%. That's up from 2.5%, its highest level in 10 months.
We're joined now by Minister of State for Policing, Fire and Crime Prevention, Diana Johnson. Good to see you this morning, Diana. Let's start with those inflation figures out this morning, shall we? Up to 3%, risen from 2.5%, a 10-month high. This isn't good, is it, for a government that's going for growth?
Well, clearly the Bank of England yesterday talked about it was going to be a bumpy ride, and we inherited an economy that had been in economic stagnation for 14 years. So we're 7 months in. The Chancellor has a plan for growth. The Prime Minister has been really clear growth is at the heart of this government, but it's not going to be easy. And so I fully appreciate and acknowledge that the inflation rate going up, that 0.5%, is disappointing. But I would also say that the IMF have indicated that the UK economy will be the fastest growing in Europe in the years to come. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I do think it is that bumpy road the Bank of England talked about.
We've got economists reacting to this morning, saying that this is actually down to your political choices. They blame, in large part, this higher private school fees, of course driven by the Labour government's move to end the long-standing VAT exemption for private schools, which came in on January the 1st. So these are your decisions that are causing inflation to rise, according to economists.
Well, my understanding is that one of the big reasons why this inflation rate has gone up is because of global gas prices. That's an issue around the world. And also, I'd just say to you that we've had to make some difficult decisions. And one of them was around increasing, putting the VAT on private school fees. That we were very clear in the manifesto that was what we were going to do, and that money is going to be used to support all children in our schools in the state sector. So difficult choices, but there are other factors at play here around that inflation rate that are global.
Diana, how does that happen? How does that help the state schools? I'm simply asking because that money's not ring-fenced, you know that.
Well, I think it's very clear that we want to make sure that all of our children do the best they can, that we have investment in our state education sector. Bridget Phillipson has already announced additional money going into, example, breakfast clubs. We need to make sure that our children are as healthy as they can be, and there's a real issue about mental health and well-being. We want to support that through our schools. But fundamentally, we want to make sure that our children achieve the best they can, and that involves improving standards, but also ensuring that the investment is going in. We've got the best trained professional workforce for teachers that we can have, and that our schools are able to provide the best education to children in this country.
Diana, when you left school, were you ever tempted to embellish your CV?
When I left school, well, that was quite a long time ago now when I left school, and my CV and my details are on my website and are all available for people to see.
But likewise, you'd remember if you said you were a solicitor when you weren't a solicitor, as Jonathan Reynolds has done. Can you explain that?
Well, as I understand it, I think there was some issue around the LinkedIn page, and there was solicitor and trainee solicitor was used. I don't think that amounts to changing your CV. I think that was probably an administrative error as far as I can see.
Well, it's more than that, isn't it? Because let's listen to this clip, shall we? This is Jonathan Reynolds speaking in the House of Commons in 2014.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day from what is now my constituency.
That's misleading the House, isn't it?
Well, it seems to me that might well be a slip of the tongue, but if you look at Jonathan's website, it says very clearly he was a trainee solicitor. I mean, that's what I've seen. He was a trainee solicitor at a firm in Manchester.
The thing is, though, this isn't the first time we've heard this, isn't it? This is the second cabinet minister who's been accused of embellishing their CV. It comes after the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, accused of embellishing her CV, stating she was an economist at the Bank of England for 10 years. It looks like it was more like 5 years. You must see that this calls into question the integrity of this government. How can the electorate trust this cabinet with running the country if they can't even tell the truth about their own work experience?
Well, look, I think administrative errors are made. People, you know, it may be in your office that people put things onto websites or LinkedIn and it's not checked. But I'm absolutely confident that we have an excellent cabinet who are doing a really good job. We've inherited a very difficult economic situation. There's lots of issues that we're having to address, and I have every confidence that all the cabinet members are doing an excellent job on behalf of the British people. We've only been in power 7 months, and there's a huge amount to do. And I think that's the focus of the government, to make sure that our policies that we promised to the British people last July are now implemented. And that's why today the knife crime provisions that I'm talking about, and those measures which we promised we would do, we are now delivering on. And for families like Ronan Canda's family, who, you know, had that awful attack on their son, lost him in the most horrific circumstances, we are starting to put in those measures which will deal with the sale of knives to under 18s online, which Commander Clayman, who's done a review for us, has identified there are real gaps there that we need to plug and deal with. And we need to tackle that issue of under 18s being able to buy knives online, and we need to increase the sentences for those who allow that to happen.
But does it tackle the issue of why young people are taking knives out onto the streets in the first place? Nothing's going to stop a child just going into the kitchen drawer and grabbing a knife from there.
And you're absolutely right. This group of measures is really important, but we have to do the preventative work with young people to make sure that if they are at risk of getting involved in knife crime, the preventative measures are around them. And that's why we're going to set up the prevention partnerships, which is about putting in and identifying those children most at risk and supporting them. So prevention, dealing with those who offend, and the supply of knives to under 18s, we need to show how serious we take that by increasing increasing the sentence. And we've also got the Coalition to Tackle Knife Crime, which the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary set up. The victims and the families of victims, campaigners in this area, to challenge the government, to come up with new ideas, to think about what more we can do. So I think I'm confident that with that range of measures, with that range of people participating in this, we can start to get to grips with the problem of knife crime. But it's not one thing. It has to be a whole system approach as it's described.
Minister, thanks for your time this morning. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, it's 40 years this month of the iconic soap EastEnders. Can you believe it? So we thought we'd take a visit to Albert Square, but not the one in the East End.
This one's, in Yorkshire.
Yeah?
So it is. We're now joined by our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley. Where are you, Anna? Whose house is that you're in?
Good morning to you both. We're here in Albert Square in Yeadon and we're in the home of lovely Rose Teal. She's invited us in today. Thank you so much for having us, Rose. Rose, just tell us what it's like living here. You've been here for 14 years and it's a bungalow complex.
It is. Yes, it's an old people's complex. It's lovely. We have everything we want round about. We don't, and there's plenty to do as well with clubs and everything, and the amateurs and such like. Yeah, it's a super place to live. Also, I've been here 68 years. We got married 68 years ago, and we lived across the road, and then just moved down and back again. And there's history as well on Albert Square. They used to have the feast. There was a big mill as well on here. Circus used to come every so often. Albert Square was once known as Pennyfoyle Hill because there used to be a lady come and she just lived up here, and she used to tell fortunes and charge a penny for it, so they called them fools or foils that used to live up here. And it was an old, the feast must have been here nearly 100 years ago, because my husband's father, as a young boy, came on, and there was a chap on pulling teeth out, and if he pulled a tooth out, he'd give him a tea cake, and then he went home, and his mother brayed him for having his tooth out. So, plenty of history.
Lots of history, and we've sort of been talking about the news of the day, and one of those is inflation going to 3%. You were saying how much you'd seen your bills rise.
It's gone up. It's gone up quite a bit. We were talking about it the other day, actually. We're getting fed up of it. With knocking the winter fuel payment off, a lot of people depended on it because of it just helped and put a bit more money in your pocket, really, to help with your bills. But, the talk she's saying about the pension, we're not going to be any better off because the pension won't even cover the heating and whatever.
Thank you so much for having us this morning, Rose. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking with us. And we're going to be in Albert Square all today, speaking to other residents about what it's like living here and the day's news.
OK. Anna Riley, thank you very much.
Now, if you want to win our Great British Giveaway competition, it is a goodie. It's 10,000 quid and a lot of extras.
Thank you very much.
Here's what you need to do.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
tell you where you'll need good luck. No arms, one leg, and you want to sail the Pacific Ocean on your own. We're going to talk to Craig Wood about why he wants to do all of that right after this.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
A woman of 53 has believed for 18 months she was in an online relationship with Brad Pitt.
I think we're seeing pictures. So
Now,
these are the pictures that she received that made her believe that she was in this relationship with Brad Pitt.
And you'll see that some of it is in hospital because the scammer was claiming that he was suffering from cancer. This was playing very much on her emotion. So this is a divorcee who lived in Mauritius. She'd received a £700,000 divorce settlement, or £650,000 divorce settlement, I should say, and £700,000 has been taken from her through this scam.
Yeah.
As she was becoming, every time she became suspicious, the money was taken for payment of charges on gifts that she never received, and then hospital fees. There was lots of emotions being played into there. Now, as somebody, I'm a rom-com writer by trade, so I write romantic fiction. And one of the books I've written has actually been about somebody who did online dating, got herself into a whole heap of trouble. Not quite, she wasn't in a relationship with Brad Pitt, but she met somebody dodgy. So because I've written that book, I've met a lot of people who've come up to me and said, oh, it's happened to me.
It's scary in this digital age, isn't it?
They've lost 700,000, but somebody has tried it on. Somebody my question is, would a man go 18 months in a relationship online without seeing somebody and keep it going? Or is this feeding into this neediness of a particular demographic of a woman who that's better than anything else she got going on in her life, was what was being fed to her over the internet?
And then maybe a little bit of her knew, but she kind of just suppressed it because she
was hoping it was Brad Pitt.
Her daughter apparently for a year was saying, this can't be true, come on, think about it. But she just fell for it. But I just wonder, it's a very sad story. She's obviously now getting a lot of hate and ridicule as well.
Because she's been on French TV and she's had a huge amount of pushback from it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, we've got a truly incredible story. We do mean incredible, we're going to tell you next. This is a lad who is a veteran, ex-army, and he's hoping to become the first, this is the big bit, triple amputee, right? So he has lost one leg and two arms, and he plans to do what, Ellie?
Sail solo and unsupported across the Pacific Ocean.
Dear goodness me. Craig Wood was just 18 when he suffered his life-changing injuries, and he's with us now in the studio. So, I don't know what I'm laughing for. There's nothing much to laugh at, is there? Why do you want to do this, my friend?
I want to raise awareness about what disabled people can do, and try and change some perceptions on what is possible.
So, Craig, what happened to you when you were 18 years old? Because your life changed forever, didn't it, in Afghanistan?
It did, yeah. I was on routine foot patrol, and several feet in front of me was a Commando IED. They triggered it, and, triple amputee. Both legs and only the one hand, not one leg in, two hands. But yeah.
Oh, both legs? Oh, sorry, it told me it was one leg.
That would be very difficult sailing with only one leg and no hands.
Yeah.
And how did those injuries change your life, Craig?
Yeah, in the worst way possible, you know. Everything I love was taken away from me. Windsurfing taken away, guitar taken away. Couldn't even hug my parents or speak in the first initial few weeks. So it was a complete flip upside down.
And then what's led you to this challenge now? I mean, travelling 6,000 nautical miles from Mexico to Japan by yourself in this specially made, custom-built aluminium boat.
Yeah, before he does that, he's got to go to Doncaster and back today.
Yeah.
On top of all of that, by train. Do you know what's interesting talking to you? I'm wheelchair bound and I have been for 2 years, and I only concentrate on what I can't do. And you're actually coming at this from the opposite way, and you're saying, if you're disabled, these are the things you can do.
I'd say to you, focus on how you can't do those things. So how to actually achieve the things that you're not saying you can do. And if you give it a bit of time and thought, I'm pretty sure you'd achieve it.
Wow.
Except for stairs.
Yeah.
How did you find out that you loved sailing? Because you've got into this in recent years, haven't you, really?
My dad taught me how to sail when I was very young. And that lasted up until I joined the army. When I was injured, the doctors saying, you know, look, sports are pretty much a no-go. My dad refused to take that as a thing. He gave me the details to the Paralympic sailing coach, and then I was in the Paralympic team for a little while. I didn't go to any games, but that reintroduced me to sailing and what was possible in the sailing world.
We saw some pictures there of your wife and children. They're going to be pretty concerned, are they not?
Yeah. My kids are too young to understand the concept of time, but they'll still miss me.
Because they are babies, aren't they?
3 and 2, yeah.
They're going to miss you.
They are, yeah. I'm going to miss them wildly.
How long are you expecting it to take?
It's about 100 miles a day, so between 60 and 70 days.
And how are you going to be doing 100 miles of sailing a day? Will you be sleeping and dropping the anchor, or how's it going to work practically?
No, just sails up. Whenever I go to sleep, I'll put a reef in the sail, which means, like, taking the area down a little bit. But, yeah, I've got so many alarms on the boat that if anything's going to hit me or the wind gets up or if I'm off track, they'll just alert me.
There's always somebody watching you, knowing where you are then. Craig, what do you think the hardest part of all of this will be for you?
Missing my children and kids. As long as there's no weather.
Physicality, the mental thing then.
Yeah, most of the mental. Yeah, unless there's no bad weather. If I hit really bad weather, then for sure that'll take all the precedence. But yeah, I can do something about that. I can't really do something about missing my wife and children.
And how are you feeling ahead of this?
Apprehensive.
Feeling scared?
Apprehensive. Yeah. So it's the unknowns that scare me, but like the floating debris, things I can't see in the water that could damage my boat. But yeah, just really excited to get gone.
Goodness me. And what do you think your chances are of doing all this? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling good about this?
Yeah, really confident,
He's up for it, yeah. And if people want to donate to you, because I know so many people watching and listening now will want to help and support you as best they can, how do they do that?
So they can go onto GiveStar and search my name, Craig Wood. And what happens is on GiveStar, it has a 50% split rate. So the two charities that I'm raising money for are Turn to Starboard and Blesma, and they will get the equal amounts of money raised.
So when will it all be over? When will you cross the finish line?
Hopefully sometime at the end of May, beginning of June. Yeah. If I leave it later than that, then I'll be entering typhoon season. That's when the big weather can come.
Well, will you come back and tell us, wave the victory flag at the end of all of this?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
please do.
Every success to you, honestly, from the bottom of our hearts on this. And we're worried about you getting on the train to Doncaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig's got to go to Doncaster and back today to collect a parcel, haven't you? And then you've got a late-night flight tonight to Mexico, so you're not stopping.
I'm not stopping.
Now until May.
It's go. Yeah.
Good lad.
Best of luck to you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Lovely
Thanks
to
very
meet
much
you.
indeed. As you can see, Bev and Ben are both here for Britain's Newsroom at 9:30.
I was getting PTSD from that, I'm afraid, because do you remember my ex-husband? He rowed across the Atlantic, and as the partner who's there waiting for them, it's very stressful. But good luck, you'll be amazing.
Have a good show.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. So after a chilly start today, we are going to see a change on the way for the next few days, turning much milder for all of us, and there will be some rain at times moving in from the west. We've already got the first batch of wet weather moving in from the west today, so a bit of dampness across Wales and western parts of England. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through this afternoon as well. A little bit of snow perhaps over the tops of the mountains as well, but still mostly dry actually across many eastern parts of England with some bright or hazy spells of sunshine. Still quite chilly though in the east, temperatures 6 to 7 degrees, so milder than it has been, but not as mild as further west where we'll see highs of 10 or 11 degrees. As we go into this evening then, it turns increasingly wet across the southwest. So if you are journeying through rush hour this evening, well, some heavy rain arriving across parts of South and West Wales, particularly Pembrokeshire. That rain band stretches up through the Irish Sea and across parts of Northern Ireland, so some heavy bursts of rain here, as well as that across western parts of Scotland, turning pretty wet through this evening too. Holding on to drier conditions and quite chilly conditions across the north and the northeast of Scotland. Temperatures will fall away once again through this evening, as they will do for a brief time across some eastern parts of England. But through the night, that band of rain pushes in from the west, bringing with it increasingly windy conditions as well. So some wet and windy conditions, the odd rumble of thunder, perhaps with the odd heavier burst of rain. But as the night goes on, those temperatures are really going to start to rise. So by the end of the night, temperatures in the west, 11 or 12 degrees, and even frost-free further east. So a much, much milder start to the day. So for Thursday then, a pretty wet and windy picture out there for many of us. Spells of rain off and on. Most of that rain easing from the west as we go through the afternoon, with some brighter or sunnier skies developing, particularly for Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, Wales and England, but perhaps a few heavy showers later in the day. A very mild picture though wherever you are, highs of 13 or 14 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Orkney ferry sailings between Pyrrhawall and Papa Westray are currently suspended because of poor weather conditions. In Murray, the A96 is closed each way between the Spey Bay roundabout and the A98 at Fochabers after an accident causing queues. In South Wales, on the A470, it's taking around 20 minutes in southbound queues from Pontypridd, junction 32 of the M4 at the Corriton interchange. In Essex, the A12 is partly blocked southbound just before junction 18 near Chelmsford, with delays from junction 19. There are delays to some southeastern train services into and out of Victoria Station in London thanks to a faulty train earlier. On the M25 in Surrey, the inside lanes close clockwise just before junction 11 at Chertsey, where a lorry has a puncture, taking 10 minutes in 3 miles of queues. And train services are suspended between Portsmouth and Southsea and Horsham because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Inside Number 9, Stage/Fright. So Inside Number 9, massive cult BBC 2 show. One half of the League of Gentlemen, so Steve Pemberton, Reece Shearsmith, they are the kind of creative geniuses behind all those sorts of shows. So it's weird, wonderful, macabre, sort of very, very black comedy. And this is their kind of farewell thank you to fans. It is such a niche show and such an extraordinary success already ticket-wise. It's virtually sold out. We're hoping it's going to actually extend. Stunning. So basically, it's 2 or 3 of their episodes mashed together. I haven't seen the show. Absolutely fine. So for me, it was actually just